And welcome back to ScavTalk, everyone. Today we're joined by CZTL. If I said that right? Yes, I did. I nailed it. I looked at this hat to get the confirmation. I try to look in the camera that way, I'm talking to you guys. And yeah, we're gonna be talking Tarkov again, and some of the information that came about from the was it Tarkov, the Girls of Tarkov podcast was like the official title.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, exactly. But they have some good questions, so
yeah,
definitely worth it.
A lot of good info in there, I thought. Along with that, also the fragmentation bug that was, I guess, further discovered. There's a lot of bugs associated with fragmentation, it seems like, but there's been new breaking ground, which we'll talk about in that area. And then just now on Friday of the first week of September, we got some quest changes done to Grenadier and a couple other possible changes as well that maybe we'll get into. And then lastly, we're going to talk about some Tarkov economy. Oh boy.
Boy, I cannot wait. But we do have CZTL here. Welcome. Thank you for joining the podcast. Good to have you here. I guess for those of you who don't know you, give yourself a little intro so that to introduce yourself to the listeners so people can get a bit of an idea of who you are and how you came to Tarkov and what kind of things you get up to.
Okay. Yeah, I'm CZTL, or you can also call me Chris. But yeah, I've been playing games since I was in high school, 20 years at least. Started off with Rainbow Six. I was playing PUBG for a long time while my friends were playing Tarkov, and I never understood the appeal until I watched a couple streams, and I was like, okay, I need to join in. And they had basically already progressed through the entire. They played a lot of wipes, 6, 7, 8. They've been in there since like the alpha. So I was a little bit late, but like I remember going in and like getting this crazy M4, and the Bravo sight, and with the canted sight on the side, and I was like, how do I switch between all these things? This is so complicated. And I'm not one to steer away from a challenge. So they were like, if you have to stick with it for 2 raids. I'm like, you had me when you got me to buy the game. You didn't have to do anything else. So basically, I got the Kappa my first wipe, and almost every wipe since, until they increased it to 71. And then I started seeing that a lot of the community would drop off around mid-wipe, and that a lot of news would go uncovered, and a lot of content would not be released. So there was a podcast that Nikita did a while ago, and that's when I kind of started making videos, when he said that there was a graphics card change. Turned out there was no graphics card change. No, he said it. But that's how I started doing my YouTube stuff. So I do mostly YouTube on-demand videos. I do streaming here and there, but I try to focus more on the on-demand videos. I want to do as many science type videos as possible, but those don't always do as well as the other ones. So I mix in some variety here and there, just to stand out, trying to see what works, what doesn't work.
That's interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. I guess was that podcast? Is that where we were talking about like graphics cards spawning in PCs or something? When the whole community was like, they never spawn in PCs. It's just like, we've changed it, and everyone was like, well, they still don't spawn in PCs. I've still never seen one. That kind of deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was that one. It might have been a year ago or something like that. They do spawn in PCs now.
Yeah. Because it's in the recent memory. I remember when that actually happened in the first place. So why were you so reluctant to get into Tarkov? That's kind of interesting that a lot of your friends were playing Tarkov and you were reluctant to move away from PUBG in the first place. Like, what was it? Just like having to buy another game, just moving away from the game, kind of deal?
Yeah, it's more about when you pick up a game, you need to devote a lot of time to it. And I was like, I'm already devoting a lot of time to like PUBG. And I like the realistic aspects about it, or semi-realistic. The fact that I like the style of PUBG, like right when it came out, when they started adding skins and everything, started to get a little bit bored of it. But initially, when it came out, it was game breaking, and then Fortnite kind of came along, and Yeah.
We're
But
tempted, eh?
yeah.
I remember it's funny.
So,
You sound a little bit like me in terms of gaming, right? It's like I actually resisted PUBG from Dota 2 for ages. Like my friends played PUBG for a while, and I was still on Dota 2, and I was like, no, I'm not going to move over. Like we've been playing Dota for like 4 years now. Like I don't want to change over. And then eventually, I finally got convinced to move back over because it had been ages since I'd played a shooter. I was just like, oh, no, I'm washed up now on FPS. Like I can't shoot anymore. I'm old now. You know, there's no way. And yeah, I mean, like, the thing is, dude, after not playing any shooters for like 4 years, like your skills, they're just gone, right? It's just you're done. Like, you're actually just done. It's like it was so different going back, but it's funny. Like without doing that hop, I would then have not made the hop from there to Tarkov myself. So probably quite a good job that I ended up finally getting convinced. It took, honestly, I basically got crowbarred out of Dota 2 and into PUBG. It was like an intervention by like 6 people.
very similar experience over here.
Mhm.
And I'm also a software engineer, so some of the stuff that I have worked on, I will like make programs for in the background, or I'll do spreadsheets with macros or whatever to pull down the latest stats. So if you have any questions regarding development, definitely throw them my way.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, there's quite a lot of software development people within the Tarkov world. I think it especially appeals to people who like complex systems, which I mean that's
Mhm.
software development to a T, right? So we were just talking just before about logical solutions, and there's like a bunch of different like dev tools, whatever. Like the latest one that I've ended up getting into is Tarkov.dev, which I think is the a spin-off. It's not the same, but it uses the base of the old Tarkov Tools website before the guy shut that down. And it was Sad in my Discord who got me onto Tarkov.dev because that's super good, and they've got that linked in and all. You can look at all the different barters and all that kind of stuff. You just reminded me about it. Like if anybody hasn't seen Tarkov.dev, I was kind of like, yeah, maybe, but it's like it's actually really good. If you like search up an item, it'll show you like all the different ways that you can get that item, and it even includes barters as well. I think I've only found like bugs, like there's occasional fringe cases of how much it costs to sell a gun back to the trader and something like that in like some very specific cases where it doesn't show you the most profitable thing, but otherwise it shows you all the hideout stuff, all the barter stuff. Like it's super good. But yeah, no, we've got a ton of good people in the community working on software and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, are you actively doing things like that for EFT at the moment?
The last thing I tried to do was to map out Lighthouse to a T, get every single dimension exactly correct. I went around, I used the screenshot tool to get the precise dimensions, and then they came out with the rangefinder, and people had better looking maps than mine. Mine kind of looked like a paint drawing because it was drawn from like different. I would classify each thing that I took as like this is a house or something like that. It's the corner of a house, another corner of a house. So I take a screenshot, press a button. So I'll develop some things like that on the side that will help me gather data, but not many tools that are, I guess, outward facing in terms of, I don't know, for general use.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. There's one guy who makes some absolutely insane maps. I didn't for the longest time I didn't realize because I keep seeing him appear on Twitter. And these called like REMR Remo or Revo or
Yeah.
something like that. Remo. Um,
Remember.
and his maps are insane. I didn't realize that the reserve map, the 3D reserve map, was his one, and it obviously says in the corner, but I just like never really paid attention to it. I don't think because I've seen him building like woods and building out Lighthouse and some of those maps like the dude's insane. Like it's actually crazy. He's got like every tree placed in the right place and stuff. Just like my mind's just completely blown by some of the stuff that people do. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a software engineer, but I'm definitely more on the data and analytics end of the spectrum. So I'm much more of an Excel junkie. So I do kind of the basic stuff. I'm not going to be doing like big data scraping, but more of the well, Church knows this, right? When I was like going into what was it? It was armor damage. I was doing armor damage for like the new Tasmanian Tiger SK rig, and I had like probability trees with does it pen, doesn't it pen, does it pen, doesn't it pen, like getting all the different like probabilities to see how many hits, whether it's a 2, 3, 4, 5 shot kill, that kind of stuff. It's really kind of more forte. But okay, cool, dude. Well, look, it's super good to have you here. It's always good to see different perspectives. We have like such a wide range of people in the community. That's why it's always good to good to hear from everybody. But yeah, shall we jump into the podcast? Unless you have any other questions, Church, or any other comments.
No, that's
All
cool.
good.
Let's jump in.
Yeah, so and it is called like the Girls Podcast. You can see on the forum. I don't know whether we'll remember to link it or anything like that in the final thing. Maybe I'll try and remind Church, or Church will remind me to link it. But yeah, they do this the Girls of Tarkov podcast, and I believe is it actually in Russian? I think it's like recorded in Russian, right?
Yeah.
I think they translate
it is in Russian.
Yeah, and so they translate it and put it on the forum, and it's kind of, you know, it's always interesting hearing Nikita speak, but I think this one in particular was pretty cool because they asked some not like cutting questions, but some of the kind of important questions, I think. And let's just whip through, because I don't want to go through absolutely everything, unless there's anything that you guys wanted to highlight. Because like some of they say, like, what's the newest edition for the patch hardest to work on? And sounds of dropping items on various surfaces, which I think you know, they're fine, but there's nothing really, really important in there. What was the first piece that I really wanted to check on? So they started talking a little bit about the mechanics of the repair kits. They said, like, how will it work, and basically, will it break the in-game balance? Which I was like, wow, just like come straight out of the gate with the important ask, right? And Nikita's basically saying, look, it's a function of random buffs from repairing the body armor. It's planned for a long time. Well, he said, I don't know how the translation works for this, but he says it's a logical thing and isn't imbalanced, although many are afraid that it will break the balance, and it's only a small chance to receive a positive buff, and it'll be a fairly rare occasion. I mean, this thing has caused a lot of stir in the community, right? There's a lot of stuff. We talked about it a little bit ourselves previously. Actually, yeah, like CZTL, what do you think about these random buffs on armor if you're like repairing weapons and armor? Like, do you think it fits? Do you think it could break stuff? Like, what's your feeling?
My gut reaction is I have a feeling that there's going to be bugs with it and potentially ways to exploit it when it first comes out, or to min-max it, essentially. You keep repairing something. I don't know, you buy a level 4, for instance, and then a cheap level 4, you keep repairing it until you get that max buff, and then you start using that, essentially, and it becomes like a tier 6 for the price of a tier 4.
Yeah.
It does gamify it a little bit, but it could have a place in the game. I think 50% is way too high. I think that breaks all of the models that you've made, GigaBeef, for your armor damage and those armor stats.
Yeah.
But it also could be interesting. It could bring more people into it.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think I was trying to like brainstorm even before it's in how it could function, because I'm guessing that it'll be if you repair, and you have to be able to repair, because currently, you know, you're not able to repair if it's at full. So you were talking about gamifying it. I was like, okay, so what's like the minimum amount of damage? Maybe it's just the one little tick. I'm not actually sure what the minimum damage to repair something is, because even if it doesn't repair it, you know, if something's at like 24.8 out of 25 or something, you can usually still repair it, but often it ends up repairing it to then like 23. Like, it's a complete scam, but that may well end up being worthwhile, especially if something is, let's say something's armor steel. So say like a Corund maybe, right? So you take a Corund and then you shoot it with P rounds with the Makarovs. You go in together, right? You both wear Corunds. How about this? You bring in an attack 2 bag filled with Corunds. They're all insured. You wear one, you go boop. You wear the next, you go boop. You wear the next, you go boop, and then you throw them all in the river, in the sea. And then you wait a day. Then they all come back, and you go repair each one, and then keep all the ones with the good buffs. And then we'll go back into raid order. So like I'm trying to like think of ways that you could break this, even if you can only repair one time. Like I'm sure there's ways for this. Also, I guess like, yeah, because you can repair partly, can't you?
Yep.
Does it change the maximum?
You could also 5-man factory.
All that. Yeah, that could work too. Actually, yeah, because then you don't even have to get insurance. You just all go into factory together and then do it that way. Yeah. There's got to be some horrible way of abusing this. There's going to be some way. It's going to be a video. You know, it's going to be a video. Someone's going to make it. Everyone's going to in the comments just going to be like, "Why do you hate this game so much?" Why would you release these kinds of videos? Hmm.
And I'm actually curious about if it's going to the the buff that it gets, if it's going to basically make the material better, or if it's going to reduce the armor damage that you take, because the material does kind of reduce it. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see how they implement it.
Yeah.
So I did some testing
Sure.
recently on armor damage, and if you can pen something, it always does the same damage, but in a ratio of the material. So
Hmm.
I'm wondering if that will still be the case.
Yeah, we're going to have to see whether it works on the armor damage itself, whether it's the blunt damage you take through the armor, whether it's, there's like lots of different ways it could work. It did seem to look as if it happened for a certain number of times. Maybe it's only like 4 shots or something, and then it goes away. I don't know. So we'll have to see. But yeah, I'm already, my gears are already turning about ways to kind of metagame this, for sure. Absolutely, for sure.
The devil's in the details. It's always in the details.
Exactly. It's always the way. It is definitely always the way. Okay, so on to the next one. So I thought this was actually really cool. Will the co-op game mode settings be expanded? There are plans to develop PvE raid capability. For example, adding tools for filming, like a free cam. This could be awesome. Can you imagine? This would be really sick. To have like an actual BSG sponsored free cam would be really cool. And
So
the co-op practice
happy
mode will evolve.
that they're
Great.
mentioning that, dude. That just like, that makes things so much. That's that. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I can't wait for that. Can't wait.
Yeah,
I literally
think
bought a
it
second
will-
account to do that.
Oh yeah. Well, so you can kind of record your main character from like another perspective. Is that the deal?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, it is
You
definitely
just-
used by people for sure.
The creative possibilities with just having a free cam, it's just like your imagination's the limitation there. It's like it just completely opens up the door. I mean, now like everyone could be a Scuff Fair TX, if you will. You know what I mean? They could do like some really cheap animation with the PMC mouth where the mouth just opens and it's a black void and he's just talking. But you know, it's just like whatever your imagination can do, and it's like great because you know, there are these tools that are very jank and not great, you know, going behind BSG's back, if you will. But it's not an ideal situation for the user at all, or because you're breaking NDA, or not NDA, but whatever it.
TOS.
TOS.
Thank you, TOS. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm really glad that they're seeing the light, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, Nikita was. Well, I mean, BSG have like retweeted certain videos that clearly use tools that are not official. Right? Like you look at someone like Yonka's videos, and there's a bit where they go like over the top of lighthouse. Like, there's no way of doing that in the game currently. So I'm glad that they are treading the sensible line towards giving people the things that they need to make content that is clearly good and that BSG clearly backs, right? So it's just like, okay, they want people to make this stuff, so here's the tools to actually do it without having to do crazy things, and then it'll just be better for everybody. I think it's very sensible. It's very logical.
Yeah.
Not always necessarily follows that those things get added, but in this case, they do. So I'm really excited about it, actually.
Yeah, and I know it's probably not like a big priority on their list, but like I feel like that they see, you know, like I mean, really, the credit should go to people like Junker and these guys that do like these crazy projects and make it all work. Because then BSG sees it's like, wow, you know, this is really good. You know, this is getting a lot of. I mean, it's a win-win for everybody. You know, because stuff like this can reach people outside of Tarkov, and that's new customers for BSG. It's all good, I think. So.
Yeah, that the latest, like the last Junker video, I think I've watched it like 4 times.
Which one was that?
It was cool. It's the one where the thumbnail's got like the shotgun pointing right at the screen.
Okay, yeah.
It's called like it's like Tarkov. They're all called like Tarkov Wipe something. I'm gonna go and find it again. It's got loads of views. Oh my god, it's just so pleasing. It's called the Tarkov Wipe 4. That's it. The Tarkov Wipe 4, and it's got the best thumbnail of all time. And it's just so good. There's just something about it I really like. There's one part in particular which he's going through the new features of the wipe, and there's like the part with like all the guns pieced together piece by piece and stuff. Like the animation is like insane. It's just so satisfying watching it through. Like, and yeah, it's so good. It's so good, and it's funny as well. Oh my god, it's like the perfect Tarkov video. I love it so much. I actually love it. So yeah, the co-op practice mode will definitely evolve. Great, this is good. And have you considered adding more game modes to locations we're used to, or Arena handle it? So I think this is interesting because the long and the short of it is that Arena's going to handle all the like random stuff, which is kind of cool. So game modes for Arena will be varied, including the classic modes that exist in other games. But first of all, we want to implement exclusive modes created for the Arena. Oops, I've managed to. You know, I always do this when I'm on the official forum. I managed to accidentally click reply, and then it takes you right down to the bottom, and you lose your place, which is always very, very irritating. Right, let me get back to it. Hold on. Where are we? Where are we? Oh, yeah, here we go. For example, PvE mode, wave defense against scavs or bosses, duels between PMCs. There'll be many more interesting things. So I think Arena is the perfect place for this, actually. So I think it's sensible that they put it in there and not necessarily in like base EFT. Like base EFT and co-op offline and that kind of stuff you can do free cam or whatever and like look around the maps and things. But if you want fun game modes, I mean, I personally think Arena is the absolute perfect place to have all that stuff. I wonder what kind of things we could get. It'd be quite fun to do like a sort of survival waves against scavs and things like that. You know, 4 friends defend the fortress against waves of scavs. All killer. I don't know. We're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see. Would you do duels? Do you think?
I've done duels myself. I've played, or I've done duels in live rates, essentially, Russian roulette and things like that. I would definitely do it. One thing I think is that could definitely be interesting about this would be like there are potential for like community inspired game modes that would come from offline co-op and then potentially be introduced in here.
In what sense? Like what kind of thing?
For instance, I don't know. Jesse did a hide and seek thing on his stream recently. Something like that. I don't know. There could definitely be like Halloween events and things like that where you're playing against all cultists. I think there's a lot of potential for random and very cool things to happen in Arena.
Yeah.
I don't know what the mechanics of bringing your stuff in or what guns that you have, so I can't. It's hard for me to imagine what like the sense of loss that you normally get in Tarkov would be in Arena by doing some of these things.
Yeah, that's going to be the interesting thing. Like, we just don't know whether that is going to be shortened down. I think that's actually probably one thing that could be a problem for Arena is if that sense of loss is not really there, and you can always just go in with a random kit. I don't know whether the game will necessarily feel the same, and then you may end up with. Funnily enough, you could, and I don't want this to be the case, but you could end up with the same feeling that other games that are Tarkov-like have ended up getting, where the sense of loss isn't really there, and people aren't compelled to play because it's just not the same. And maybe Arena won't be the same as base Tarkov, and people won't like it that much. I don't know. We're gonna have to see, because that's people like the fact that there's gear at risk, and when you kill someone, you take their stuff, and you're kind of taking their hard-earned gear. There's this sort of satisfaction in killing somebody else and knowing that the gear matters, right? Whereas if you kill someone else in Arena, even the guys who are good at PvP thinking, oh well, you know, it's now just kind of COD in Tarkov. Do I care as much? Is it satisfying to kill people? Would I rather just kill people in labs, like knowing that they're not going to get their stuff back? I don't know. We're going to have to see. But there's like this funny psychological thing about the base game of Tarkov that keeps people coming back. It'll be fascinating to see exactly how that pans out and how the progression cycle goes. I'm hoping they do it in a sensible way that allows you to just run and gun and play, but then also there's this level of progression too. I wonder if you can have have they said if you're gonna have like a stash for Arena? Will you have an actual stash? Well, we don't know yet. We have no idea.
I don't know.
I don't think we know.
Yeah.
I feel like
One
there's
thing I'm
been
curious
so
about-
much hearsay. So it's hard for me to say anything confidence. What were we gonna say?
I think the biggest thing that I'm curious about is are skills going to be able to be progressed in Arena? Are you going to go into Arena and basically up your recoil skill to like max very quickly with almost no sense of loss?
Mm-hmm.
see what you mean. I guess even if you have an actual, because they said, oh, you can bring your main character to arena. I imagine you'll only be able to bring your main character with stuff that you've paid for in the game. I guess. But yeah, it's a good point. If you're able to bring your main character or your main character's shared with the stats or something, and you just go, fine, well, I'm just going to play arena for 3 days, and then I'm going to have max endurance and whatever, because the raids are so quick. It's like a few minutes each, and they've got the same skill system with diminishing returns or whatever. So you go, well, I've just played 3 minutes, and it's like bam, bam, bam. It's like starting a new raid over and over, and the queue times are greatly diminished, and they're over much quicker. You could get skills a lot faster if it ends up working out that way. It's a good point. It is a very good point. It's a funny one, isn't it? Like if people don't have Tarkov, they're going to have a character, but it's not a character in Tarkov. Like if we already have Tarkov, will our arena character be separate? And then we can also bring in our PMC from real Tarkov if we want to with the gear that we've brought.
This is one thing. I was watching a Landmark stream and he happened to be talking about this, or maybe it was a YouTube video, but he was basically, I can't remember if it was skills or gear, but he was saying like, because I guess him and chat were talking, and it's the idea is like, you know, if any type of like crossover is going to be really crappy, like it's going to give a unfair advantage. Because you know, like for example, with skills, you know, if your skills are shared between accounts, you could just go arena and level up your skills very quickly. I don't know. It's just like, and I guess the thing he was saying is just like it's just going to be a paid advantage for those people. You know, if it's like gear you could get from arena and take it to whatever, you know, and maybe it's being blown out of proportion. Either way, I just wish and hope that they're separate, and however the two games are linked is like so minuscule. We're talking like cosmetics, you know what I mean? Like, oh, he's got the arena armband. Oh, he's got the arena outfit, or you know, whatever. Nothing like. Yeah, I just that's my biggest fear.
Yeah.
Is that armband could be found in raid?
Is there even found in raid arena? Like I almost feel like they should just cut out all the fluff. You know, like no skills, no stash, no like, you know, looting is like very minuscule. Like you have to loot, you know, you press F to pick up the guy's gun. You know, you don't even like loot his body. Like I mean, very like very watered down Tarkov. Like only the shooty gun stuff, and then kind of like add on from there. Because like if it's gonna be like full Tarkov, and then here's a small map. This is arena, just battle out. You know, I don't know. Like I don't know if that's gonna appeal to a lot of people. Like whatever target audience they're going for. You know, and will it even attract some of the Tarkov people? Because I don't know. There's so many questions behind arena. We'll just have to wait and see. And supposedly it's supposed to be right around the corner, if I'm not mistaken. Like they're doing the testing for it end of this year, or was it like no? What was it? It was autumn. They wanted to do like the first wave of testing or something.
Apparently, yeah. That's what they said. That's what they said. Don't shoot the messenger. That's what they said, guys. They said that. They said it. Not
because like disclaimer, we're not responsible for any misleading beliefs.
Not responsible for any deadlines set by BSG. Oh my god, exactly. Okay. All right. So then changing tact. This is actually kind of interesting. So unconscious state. They said the unconscious state will let you regain consciousness. Is this more about team play, or solo players also get the opportunity to rise from the dead? Will there always be a loss of consciousness, or is the probability of a fatal injury still higher? So I thought this was kind of cool. I'm actually probably just going to read most of this, like because there's quite a bit actually. They said knockouts are a state of your character characterized by dizziness, partial or complete loss of orientation, and sometimes consciousness. We want everything to work interactively along with your surroundings. For example, you can slip on a ladder or get knocked off a door, or behind a door, I guess is what they mean, if someone else kicks it. I mean, there's an implication there about ladders, which maybe we won't even go into that, but you know, the fact that doesn't even work at the moment, well, you know, we have no ladders in the game currently. So anyway, and they said in this case, after such a fall, the player will be able to stand up. Loss of consciousness is a more serious injury. That's where you need outside help. And they said, well, what to do if you're playing alone? Who will help you? And they said, well, nobody will. You need to understand that if you're playing solo, and that's honestly that's fine, right? For me, I think that's fine. We don't want to make any mechanics or exemptions specifically for solo players. Loss of consciousness as a random phenomenon when playing alone. It's worth remembering the possible consequences. If you aren't sure you want to engage, then don't take risks. The help of teammates is also not a cure for problems. After all, partners are not always able to quickly provide assistance. And beside anyone who tries to pick up an unconscious PMC also becomes a target. And then the final part of this one was how will the process of losing consciousness, recovery, interaction with the environment be implemented? For now, improvements still needed. For example, while on your back, if you haven't lost consciousness, you will still be able to shoot back. So this maybe adds on to the like falling over thing that we were talking about the other day, Church, about like the shotguns shooting your legs out. Can't promise we'll add this mechanic in the first iteration, but it is in plans. Visual post effects and concussion, of course, will be there. The approach will be realistic. We don't like the casual implementations of mechanics, so don't expect any defibrillators. No defibs. No defibs. There's probably quite a lot to unpack there, honestly, but it's probably the most detailed description. This is like some of the stuff that interested me the most, because I don't think I've heard Nikita talk about this in such detail about like exactly how it will work. I mean, yeah, solo players, like it's just gonna be as it is now. You know, it sucks to suck if you're playing solo and you get shot in the head and you go unconscious and then you bleed out and die. Like that's solo players will be well used to this level of punishment anyway. Do you play mostly solo, or do you play in groups? CZTL, by the way.
It depends when in the wipe I'm playing. In the beginning, it's a lot of. I would say it's like skewed 75% with groups, 25% solo, and then that alters once a lot of my friends go off and do other things, not Tarkov.
I see. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I don't know. There's so much here. Honestly, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool.
I was kind of
being
taken
able to
back.
shoot well. Oh yeah, so go for Josh.
Sorry, I was kind of taken back when he said, you know, don't expect the casual implementation, no defibrillators. Like, what? That's casual to you?
Well, people use defibs in real life, right? People dolphin dive through Battlefield with defibs in real life. Surely, no.
Exactly.
The way that I imagine it in my mind is somebody goes unconscious. I guess there'll be different kinds. Maybe there'll be the kind where you die before you wake up. So as a solo player, you just die. Then there's the kinds where you would die but somebody can help you. So if you're in a team, then somebody can like go over to you and like use an adrenaline on you. I'm hoping that things like adrenaline get used for this in some ways, so that you can then get somebody else back up, and the time is kind of lengthy, I suppose. I mean, it presumes that you're not dead. I imagine, like if you get hit, your HP super low, like you're not gonna come back. You're not gonna be on 0 and then come back with half health or whatever. I think you'd have to take a headshot pretty early. Like if somebody fully kills your character, I don't think that's going to be, oh, you're now downed and all of this stuff. Like I don't think that's going to be the way it works. I think it's if you take like a glancing blow to the head or something along those lines, or you take too much blood loss. Maybe this is where they're going with it. That would be kind of cool, because I've been thinking about this for ages. And sorry, I'm sort of like tangentializing as I'm thinking about stuff. But one of the biggest problems for me with EFT is, say you're getting shot with like 762 PS, you die in 2 shots to the thorax, you die in 1 shot to the head, and then you die in like 15 shots to the arms, something like that. And that I don't know what's the way to put it. That kind of huge gap in difference between the two has always been kind of weird. So this could maybe help a little bit, because yeah, it's weird, right? The time to kill shooting legs only with non-leg rounds is honestly insane. Like it's super high. But you could like maybe black out from like blood loss or whatever with this mechanic. And I think that would actually help. Like I remember I just take it for granted now because we've been playing for so long. But I remember playing in like my 2nd or 3rd wipe or something and shooting a guy like 6 times with 762 PS and being like, how is there no mechanics to like, how can that guy just turn around and headshot me? That's ridiculous. Right? It's insane. The dude's like going to be leaking out of like 6 holes. Like this is completely bonkers. I remember being like it's actually probably the most infuriated I've ever been about a Tarkov, because I was like back when I cared as well. I had like a decent kit on and I had like proper gear fear, and the dude like I'd shoot the guy 6 times with PS rounds and the guy turned around and just shot me and killed me, and I was like, no, I had to take a proper break. Like I didn't play for a day. I was so mad, dude. Honestly, it was like 2nd wipe or something, and I was like properly getting into it, maybe 3rd wipe. I can't remember now. And I was so mad, but I still remember that now. And ever since then, I have thought like, oh, I wonder how they deal with that, because yeah, it's really not ideal. So maybe this is the way. Maybe this is the way to deal with that in like a sensible fashion, without putting any more mechanics in, or putting in like, I always had in my mind like if you had like a shock health bar or something, but you could do like that in this. So you take you take 200 damage in a short space of time, and you get knocked unconscious. You know what I mean? Again, the breakpoints and thresholds, and there's gonna be so many. Shoot somebody in the leg with the Ash 12, and they always fall over and go unconscious. Whatever. Like, I'm sure there's some gamey way that's gonna get removed or not work properly. But that's kind of how I imagine it. But I mean, yeah, the game's slowly going to get harder for solo players, and I think that's okay. Honestly, it's what we signed up for. Personally, we know about it. But yeah, that combined with being able to potentially shoot when you fall over does make the shotguns making you fall over thing feel a bit better to me. Like if you threw you into prone or threw you on your back, or like if you get knocked over by a door, or you get shot by a shotgun, you can still shoot from the floor. You're not just like immobilized. Because we were talking about this previously about how it could be really problematic if you fall over and there's like stand-up animation and all of this stuff. If you get knocked down, how toxic that could be. Hopefully that plays into this particular mechanic that he's talking about. I mean, maybe this is like super copium. I don't know. Maybe it's just not going to work at all. But that's how I would. This is how I'm hoping it's going to go. You kind of like you're kind of getting my like vibe of like where I think they're going to take it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking like DayZ is kind of what I'm thinking of, like to analogize it or analog it, I guess is the better word. I mean, I'm kind of for it because, like, I mean, for example, when you were talking about your, story of where you shot that guy 6 times and he didn't die, it reminded me of one of my buddies who was like on a player scout on reserve and he had a PPSH and he was like crouch walking, sneaking up this PMC on the stairs, and he got like 31 hit counts on the guy and he didn't die. And he was just like infurious. And we were like, we were all like seasoned players, like, bro, you just got to shoot him in the unarmored parts, It's just like, actually, we're kind of like, it's like we've gotten so understanding and broken down these systems to like down to the T. So we know like, okay, this, you have to do these specific things. Whereas like with maybe the, unconscious state, if you got hit 31 times in your armored chest, dude, that would probably hurt, dude. You might have some broken ribs, you might be like lost of breath or something. Like you probably would fall over, right? And I think it's interesting too, because like you like thinking of DayZ again is like, let's say you shoot someone, they fall over. Well, if like of unconscious states is like, oh, did he die? Is he just knocked out? Like now you need to go up to him, find the body. Like let's say he's in woods and he falls over in tall grass. So now you got to go find the body, shoot him again to like ensure he's dead, and that's all like, it really adds like different like do you wake up during that time? Like do you play dead? And like DayZ, I know you can like when you wake up, I think depending on how you fell, you may automatically roll on your back, or maybe you wake up on your stomach and you can roll. But like in DayZ, of course, you can do all these really cool actions, like you can roll on your back and swing out your gun. I don't know. I think it could be really cool. I mean, I was doing a quest 2 the other day, yesterday. I had to kill. It was a day they had to kill PMCs on interchange with the headshot 50 meters away, and I was like, okay, I can do this because interchange is kind of one of my comfort maps. And I had a PSO scope on an AK, and I just tried to like get in these spots at distance, and I ended up shooting one guy in the head. And he tanked it because I was using BP rounds in the 5.45 because he had a class 4. He had like the ZSH helmet without the face shield, like just the helmet.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It was really odd. But
weird.
Yeah, it was weird. Anywho, if unconscious state, maybe he falls over. In that case, I don't know how they'll do all the implementation, but I think it's a cool mechanic because like the other thing I wanted to mention was, have you guys seen Jesse Kazam's post? I think he did like a Twitter post and a YouTube post. Like, would you rather, the scenario he said it was like, would you rather have a 1X and like the best ammo in the game, or, M80 and a Voodoo and like, or a 1X and a 6X, and it's just like every time I would take the scope because that the scopes, like you can get so much distance on them, that you can really get these precise shots that you can't really do with the 1X. So something like a shotgun, like it may, this change with unconscious state, it may buff shotguns more to make it more effective at like, you know, knocking people out or whatever the case may be, or just making them fall over. But I just feel like the scope, dude. I cannot, like, my meta kits, you know, pretty much most of them include the voodoo or vortex, because just having that capability is just like unmatched, right? I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm excited to see what will happen. I'm sure there'll be bugs and what iterations that need to be improved upon, but I think it's a cool, realistic feature that adds even more depth to the game.
Yeah, for me, it seems like they're going to be adding a lot more player states for health, number one. Number two, player movement mechanics, it seems like. If you're by a door and then the door gets kicked in on you, you just get knocked over. You're not necessarily going to get knocked out. You're not looking at it or whatever. So I wonder if things like inertia, like if you're running full speed with the mule, if when you stop you fall over, or different things like that, or if you are like jumping down from like a ledge or something like that onto something that's not completely flat, if you might slip or something like that. That's one of my thoughts about potentially where they could be going with this. And then there's also health mechanics. Like, is the Golden Star going to be like the most overpowered thing now because it removes contusion? It may be. But it seems like they're adding different unconscious states. And I wish they would actually use the defibrillator in game and allow you to bring that in, because that's a very expensive item to sell to traders. And not having it have a purpose seems a little wrong when, I mean, there's certain situations, like, for instance, if someone maybe goes into shock and their heart stops, where you could actually use a defibrillator and potentially like get their heart going again at a normal rhythm. I'm not an EMT. I've never used one myself, but it seems like an opportunity there to essentially potentially risk something and actually use something to help save a friend when you might need them. So you have the sense of risk and loss, and it's not like they're going to come back full health. It would be like they have to sit there and like heal up all their limbs essentially. Final thing is shooting while knocked down. I wonder if I'm thinking it may be just pistols that you're able to do. I wonder how heavy a gun has to be before you can't shoot it. Because I mean, some of the really decked out guns can be like 10 kilos or whatever, and that would be very hard to shoot in a semi-unconscious state, kind of from the ground, especially if you're kind of upright. A pistol seems a lot more manageable, so it could incentivize people to bring in pistols more, which maybe, I think that would be a good thing.
That's a pretty cool idea. Can you imagine just like you like smash the door out on some guy and he's like laid out on his back, and then you like come around the corner and you just get lit up by the guy with a huge SVD. He's just like off his back and just kills you. You're like, oh my god, it's so annoying. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. There's like a few different ways. It's going to be complicated for them to actually implement all this stuff, because there's kind of, they already have prone and they have on the side, but then you have to have on your back shooting that way. Would you be able to shoot this way on your back? I don't know. Is it just like on your back, like shooting back along yourself? I guess that makes more sense. It's like, it's confusing as to like how that's going to be. And Judge was talking about like Daisy. I was just like, can you imagine just like waking up in Tarkov and like you just don't have any stuff anymore? Like you black out, and then you wake up and you just don't have anything. Like they've just completely stripped you and just left you in the middle of woods. Like you just got the red rebel on you. That's it. You're like, oh no.
That could make for some very interesting content. You take someone's stuff and then you just revive them or bring them up.
That's true. You could bring them back, yeah, even if they're solo, because like Tarkov doesn't usually. I know there's some mechanics where it does, but Tarkov doesn't usually distinguish between friends and foes or whatever. So you just like take all the guy's stuff and then just like adrenaline him and run off. Just like, all right, see you later.
or get your grenadier kill.
Exactly, grenadier is perfect. body dragging plus fight. So you headshot the guy, he's like unconscious. You like drag him into the nice clear area. You like run 125 meters away as fast as you can. Just get shoot someone in heaven, just like.
I wonder if that will actually count as a kill if you shoot them while they're in an unconscious state because they're not dead.
Yeah, I guess I mean, it depends. I guess so. They're gonna have to put all these like shooter born in heaven from 125 meters, whilst not in this particular unconscious state, and blah blah blah. You're like waiting for them to stand up. You know, you're just like, wait, right, when they're coming back? When they're coming back? Okay, here we go. Bam, off they go. Yeah. Dude, it's gonna be funny. I mean, it's cool. I'm actually excited about this feature, honestly, because it depends on how they do it. But I think there could be some cool stuff with this. It's not all doom and gloom. I think when they first talked about like falling over just on its own, I think I was a bit concerned. But in conjunction, because we were talking about that recently, in conjunction with all this stuff, I feel like it might actually be pretty cool. I'm pretty excited. Anything else, guys? Should we move on to the next one? We got any other final comments on that piece?
All good here.
All good. Okay. Oh, there was one final bit, which that's sort of related, but I guess like they said, will it be possible to pre-inject drugs so as not to lose consciousness? And he said, theoretically, yes, but it still doesn't save you from the possibility of losing consciousness if you're low on health, sustain injuries, fractures, whatever. Conditional adrenaline can only temporarily delay the loss of consciousness. Let me remind you that such medicines will have their own penalty. With regular use, will be decreasing efficiency, increasing addiction, and so on. And this aspect will be improved. You can't just inject all the available stimulants into a character and rush into battle without consequence. I just got funny mental image. Such experiments, on the contrary, can lead to the deterioration of condition or the death of the character, since some of the medicines are basically simply contradict each other and cannot work together. So, I mean, you're going to be able to kill yourself. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. If you just go in just completely stimmed up. I was thinking about this the other day, actually, about how the PMCs in the game, and maybe this is the way that the law is kind of supposed to be, but you're not just like a regular soldier. Like all the people who play Chad style gaming are all just actually just cracked up, proper juiced. It's completely unstoppable people. Because I was thinking about it, if you're wearing a full meta kit and you're wearing an alt-in and something decent on with your armor, once you're painkillered up, even just pre-paining in Tarkov right now, people are just complete juggernauts because you can't slow somebody down. Even if you shoot them in the legs, break their legs, whatever, you just once people are on painkillers, everybody's just it's just a juggernaut style, right?
Max endurance helps a lot with that too.
Yeah, exactly. So just super stamina, and the breaks don't really have any effect. It's kind of interesting. We're gonna have to see the way that they go with that, I think. But we know that addiction's coming. A decrease in efficiency of your stims as you use them over time is kind of interesting, I think. You have to sort of use them sparingly. I guess the effect will go away as you use them less, and then so you have to kind of balance it. When do I use the stim? Am I going to use it now? Otherwise, I'm going to start increasing the. I wonder if you get yourself in a downward spiral. If you've got addiction, but then decrease in efficiency, I wonder what that means. I mean, I'm assuming addiction is just going to mean you're going to get tremors and stuff if you don't use them. So you could just not use them and go cold turkey, and then get yourself back to normal. But
maybe some post effects are added on.
I don't know.
Yeah, is there an addiction skill right now, or anything that pertains to that?
Not that I'm aware of.
So no, because I guess it wouldn't be a skill, would it? It'd be something slightly different.
Yeah.
It'd be an anti-skill. It'd be
yeah.
Dude, I got
something that you level by taking. Yeah, you just need to take morphine when you get into a raid, or
dude, these max addiction perks are so good.
It's gonna be potentially, hear me out here. It's gonna be that pre-wipe event that they had, where you die if you're not on whatever it is. Potentially, if you take them all the time, that would be interesting.
Yeah,
I just don't feel normal without my Propital, I just gotta have one as we get in the raid. Gotta do that Propital. It's gonna be it's gonna be so memey, honestly. See, that's the thing. I wonder if it's gonna be worth it for Chad players who have infinite money to just still be on stims all the time. That would actually be kind of interesting. So they do have to just be juiced up continuously, and it's they're addicted, but it's also okay because it's a net benefit for the game. It's I don't know the way that they want to take it with lore. I think it's going to depend on what our character is supposed to represent and who we're supposed to be and what Terror Group's doing. I actually think there's going to be some interesting story elements to this as to how they want these mechanics to work. as to whether they want to incentivize people to use them and say that, well, it's good for gameplay, but you're going to have this downside. If you don't use them, you're now screwed. I think that's like potentially an interesting thing. It's like you could play the game normally, use them sparingly in the regular style, or you take the downside, but you're gonna have to use them every raid. And every raid you don't use them, you're basically committing to spending money on these stims or doing raids, getting them. However, you're going to get them in the future. So you can't get them on the Flea or whatever, like infinitely. I don't know. You're sort of committing yourself to I'm gonna play the junkie lifestyle. And I'm always going to have to be going to get these things, getting these stims, but it's a net beneficial for gameplay. I could see that playing out quite interestingly, actually.
Preppers are
On
there.
certain,
Sorry,
like labs mains, yes. There's some maps it would be horrid though. Like woods mains would never do that. I don't think there's really no way to get it, and your raids are much longer because the map's bigger.
Yeah,
but it would be a good money sink. Potentially take money out of the game, buying a bunch of stims when you wouldn't need to do it before.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's gonna be interesting. I don't know.
They should just go full meme and have therapists offer a 12-step program.
Going clean
for only 2,000 rubles.
Therapist
you can enroll.
Rehab.
It's gonna be a quest.
Yeah, exactly.
That you need for Kappa.
You have to go through rehab with therapist over like 2 weeks.
Oh my god!
Remember when they had the fence rep quests?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely can imagine this. I like not even memeing here. I could definitely see this in like them introducing something like that in the game. Because like people who killed Santa a bunch, they like had a way to bring them back to normal.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. That makes sense actually. Yeah, so there's a way out. You're not stuck there forever, just in junkie hell. Oh man. God, now that's got me thinking of a whole like another trailer thought now. Oh my goodness. Okay. So the next part they said. So this is very short. Scavs, bosses, and other bots, they will also lose consciousness, as well as AI controlled scavs, raids, and rogues. Okay, so hopefully we'll continue to bring scavs and the AI and bosses, whatever, into parity with PMCs. We've tried to do that with inertia. We still don't necessarily have all of that ironed out completely, especially with ammo and various things about the AI. But that's a whole nother story. Now, the next question, I don't know how long we're going to spend on this, honestly. They said, are there any plans to balance players in some way? After all, there are players who can't play often, and there are some who devote weeks to IFT, interrupted only by sleep and food. Perhaps it's worth somehow balancing the progression, like increasing the amount of experience gained in raids. I mean, the first two words summed up to me when Agita just said, not really.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they really care. I mean, it's just like, you guys can read it yourselves if you want, but he said, like, there's a lot of people, there's really a lot of those who spend less time in the game. There's very few players who sit on Tarkov for hours on end, and only a few percent of the total. I would say that now everything is not say that now everything is horrible in terms of progression and experience. It's just average players refer to those who play the game a lot and they see their progression. Someone who spends 2 to 3 hours a day and someone making it the meaning of their life. It's different. There's a difference there, and you probably shouldn't react so sensitively. It's individual choice how much time they can devote to the game. I don't think there's really much. There's much to there, to be honest. The only other things he was saying, like, he watches the speedrunners to see what they do, obviously, because people are kind of like shortcutting parts of the game. And he said previously the periods of progression and gaining experience was very rapid, and it's not right. And some of those things don't apply to people who play it slowly and calmly, and they're trying to make the game more difficult, firstly, for those who play too fast and try to run the fastest. There are always players burning with the idea of completing the game as quickly as possible, and they will always complete it eventually. It's an endless process. So I don't know. He's basically saying, like, no, we're not really going to change it. I think this makes sense. And I think we're starting to get towards the progression that makes sense for the average player, so to speak. And it's what me and Church have talked about a ton of times, about how really BSG needs to like kind of press on the top end of players, which also has the plus side of fixing some of the end game issues as well. It's like more money sinks, making it harder to reach the actual end, making it take more money or things to need to be replenished or whatever as you get to the end game, and like balancing out that curve. Making things easier for people at the beginning also makes it easier for people at the end too. And so trying to tilt tilt it rather than doing like a parallel shift for everybody. Trying to tilt it, I think, is sensible. So I agree. I sort of agree with Nikita, honestly. I think it's fine. I mean, I keep flitting back and forwards myself between the game should be really hardcore, but then like it's really hard for new people to get into it. The game's so like it's easy to make money in Tarkov. It's the thing that's said a million times. When you're on your first wipe, it is not, right?
Yeah.
And that is something that is fundamentally not an issue necessarily, but it's something that the game has to deal with. And I feel that the early game is now probably set quite well for people in wipes like 1, 2, 3. You know what I mean? And then it's the people after that are the issue. It's us lot that are the problem. You know, they need to start pressing down on us. So I agree with this. I agree. What do you guys think?
I mean, for me, this is tough because the way the game is now, in order to get your skills up and to essentially be harder to kill or do things better, or not need as much food, etc., you need to kind of rush through the maps. So it actually like does the opposite of what they're trying to do with the diminishing returns. So I feel like they need to bring that back into parity to give the average player, who probably spends a lot more time in raid for their couple of raids, like to kind of reward them a little bit more for staying in longer. Because the longer you stay in, like the harder the scavs get, the more likely you are to die to player scavs, and that's like 1 or 2 more raids that you can't do. So that's my thought on it. They need to potentially make the skill system a little bit more forgiving for people who enjoy to have an immersive raid rather than go kill someone, run, get out, repeat, keep going.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, they have been slowly decreasing the effect of skills. I mean, this is why we're seeing the massive difference in people running max strength. You know, it's like huge change. I was talking to someone in my Discord who always gets to max strength, and he was like, I can't wear any kits. Like everything used to just be basically free weight now, and now it's just the guns. It's a huge difference. Huge difference. So I think they are slowly diminishing the skill systems. It's not as impactful, but like it still makes a big difference, right? And it still takes an ungodly amount of time to do it. I mean, I was looking at my stats and I was just like, dude, I'm like only like mid-20s strength and like late teens endurance. Oh my goodness. You know, it takes a long time for the average player to get skills. It's definitely true. So they could make that a little bit more forgiving, I think, even still. They changed perception this wipe to make it not the hearing differences not as much. Just delete that skill. Just delete that one. It doesn't make sense. But yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Baby steps. Baby steps. Baby steps for sure.
Oh, one thing I want to mention quick. I did like this last line that I want to read, or paragraph rather. Each player has a chance to kill the fully geared player and hit the jackpot. This is from Nikita, by the way, the transcription I'm reading. You can always throw a lucky grenade and destroy a whole squad and bring a lot of bright emotions. Of course, there will also be unbalanced moments, cheaters, bugs, desyncs. We understand this and are working to address these issues, but in general, we cannot create the perfect vacuum and balance in all aspects and at all levels. There will always be a certain degree of inequality among players. This needs to be adapted to the situation. There is no perfect balance. Try to play for your pleasure, allocating your time and resources. And I kind of like that. I like the statement you made earlier. It was like, you know, you throw that lucky grenade, you kill that squad. It's like a really big moment. You know, if like there was like some like gear, you know, matchmaking thing where people come in equal geared, you know, it's just like, it's not as exciting, you know. You don't really get those like big moments, I feel like. So I kind of like, I do like some of the inequality, but I do think in general that, you know, as you said, Giga, when you had that analogy of making the, you know, low levels a little bit easier, making the high levels a little bit harder, I kind of like that curve, how that plays out, instead of just raising the bar for everyone. So yeah, that's kind of, and I'm super hopeful and looking forward to this skill rework system, because I definitely think that it is really, you're like actively hurting yourself by not speed running the raids, if you will, in terms of leveling your skills, because you miss out on that bonus progression and whatnot. That, or you just sit 5 minutes not playing the game AFK until you reset your what is it, digression or whatever back to 100, and then you start it again. So it's I don't know, not my
Perfect for
favorite system in the
productivity,
world.
You know, and writing scripts. You go write some YouTube scripts for 5 minutes, go back. My favorite set of quests of all time.
Mhm.
Or going into barbed wire.
That's another fan favorite. That's a good one. Vitality 3, baby, every wipe. Every wipe.
Yeah.
Oh
But
my god.
I do like the disparity though. It gives people new to the game something to look forward to. Like, okay, I want to progress to be like that one day.
Yeah.
It gets people who want to play the game more if they have time. Instead of just everyone's on an equal playing field, you might get bored of it a little bit more quickly.
Mhm.
And I mean, they've showed us the stats. Like, I forget how many people had like max strength and max endurance last wipe. I forget the exact number of people who got Kappa, but it was a much lower amount than a lot of people thought. It's just when you run raids kind of later into wipe, you're most likely playing with a lot of people who have been playing all wipe.
Yeah.
So
That's
there
actually
is
a
a
very good
barrier
point.
to entry.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Somebody made an interesting observation on one of the. I think I can't remember what I said in particular, but somebody looked at what I said and was just like, "Well, it's interesting about how even though if you take, I think it was on one of the polls that I did. So the polls of like player level, and it's interesting because even though the player level distribution looks a certain way, because people at the upper end of the experience curve obviously play more, you're actually more likely to run into people higher up the curve than you would think based upon just looking at that average player level. So you look at the different buckets and say 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, da da da. But those people who are like 50 plus, they play like 5 times the amount as somebody in the middle bucket. You're 5 times more likely to run into somebody at the end. So even though there might be 10 times less many players, it's actually only half as likely to run into somebody who's level 50 than it is to run into somebody who's level 30, which I actually hadn't really thought about before. It was like the next step logically, and that I guess the combination of the frequency of people playing raids versus what their actual level is, and whether that matters or not, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I do think in general people do typically overestimate the average level within the game, and it's partly because what do people see mostly? They see content creators, they see streamers. You don't normally see the average dude playing regularly, and so it bleeds into, and then this element of the fact that you run into these people because they're playing more raids too. It kind of then bleeds more into the psyche of the wipe. Like, I mean, I get comments now on my YouTube being just like, "Lol, mid wipe," everyone's running class 6, and I'm just like, it's not true, man. Like, it just isn't true. And people write it all over my videos, and I'm just like, it ain't true. It's actually not true. But there's definitely a perception of that. But yeah, I think there is some element of, I agree with you. There's some element of like, oh, I want to be able to play like that one day. I want to be able to use tier 5 armor without worrying about it, kind of thing. Like it took me a long time to use class 5 armor without feeling like I was just a walking pinata. It did take me a while, and I mean, in some ways, I'm still getting there. I don't really use altins and that kind of thing because I just need to practice without being able to hear. I genuinely do because I use it. Hearing is like it's so much of a crutch. It's so important to I don't know. Anyway, it's an interesting one. This next one was pretty funny. This is not really anything. They said about the injector case. Why was it reduced? But I mean, to be honest, I think everybody knows it was just way too big at 4x4. Like 3x3 makes way more sense. But what was funny about this is that they said game design. I just thought it was a funny anecdote. Game designers are always adjusting certain characteristics and features. For example, it used to be possible to endlessly stack bags into other bags, and a funny bug happened. One player had problems loading their profile. They just couldn't log in. As it turned out, this happened because they had 600 bags all in one bag. Our employee corrected the situation by removing the bags and sending the player his backpacks in the in-game mail, and the ability to stack bags, I guess, down to this depth was, of course, removed, which is pretty hilarious. Somebody stacked bags so much they broke their game and couldn't log in anymore, which I thought that was just really funny. It gave me a good chuckle when I read it. We've spoken before previously. I'm just going to quickly skip through a couple of these so we don't run out of time. we've spoken previously before about grenades. Now, if you don't label them specifically with hotkeys manually on the inventory, you pull out a random grenade when you press G, which sucks. They say grenades need to be prepared beforehand. It's on purpose. It's not going to get changed. It's annoying because honestly, it doesn't really benefit gameplay. It just kind of is a bit rubbish. And it incentivizes people to just use one grenade only. But that's just the way it is. Will Steam Audio stay in the game? Nope, it'll be replaced. But we talked about that quite a lot with Spectator 6 last time. But how, maybe not necessarily the biggest problem ever. He actually has Spectator 6 has got a big like hour-long video on his YouTube channel, by the way, that he posted after our ScavTalk thing because he went into so much detail and I think wanted to do the topic justice. So if anybody's interested in that and hearing from somebody who knows his stuff, then definitely head over to his channel and listen to that. I listened to probably the first half hour again the other day while I was like editing and stuff, and it was super interesting. So yeah, go and check that out. And then I think like a lot of the rest of the stuff is about sound. So there's a bit about ambient sound, not that important. And then if you lie on the floor, you can hear sounds from below. If you stand on the bed in the building, you'll hear sounds from above. Is it possible to fix this, or will this issue remain? And they said, I've said many times, if the player looks in the direction of sound, they'll hear sound better. But we're definitely going to fix it. It has bugs. Hopefully this comes with a Steam Audio change. If they get rid of that and then try and fix some stuff, it really is just on them to do the work, I think, which is, oh dear, it's a whole thing, isn't it? It's a whole thing. Do you use Steam Audio, CZTL? I'm assuming you probably do. Or
Yes, 100%. It for me is a game changer. I remember just going to Resort and thinking that you hear someone in front of you and they're 3 levels above you, or not hearing something, or you just can't interpret the audio that well without it. But yeah, I understand. Like we're only using, I think, 1 module from it right now. Correct? It could be 2 or 3, but it's a low number, and I definitely think it's good. But there are alternatives. Mentioned in the last podcast. So
yeah, exactly. Well, hopefully they can do something sensible. We just have to see. We just gotta have to trust them and just let them get on with it, right? There's nothing else that we can do. I don't think it's sad, but it's just the way that it is. I mean, I think they said, did they actually say something in particular? Yeah. So actually, maybe it is interesting to read out what he actually said, because he said the main reason for leaving Steam Audio is the lack of involvement with the authors of this technology. We haven't received any potential solutions to our ideas from them, so we'll be moving away from this solution in the near future, which is kind of interesting, right? Because this is always the problem if you have a third-party piece of software. You're reliant upon them to fix bugs. It's not your code.
Right.
And so you can't just say, I think it's what Spectator was talking about, but you just have to report a bug to them and let them work on it. And that may not be good enough, especially if you're one of many projects that they have that are working on that stuff. And you might have some very particular niche use cases for it, such as incredibly complex maps with moving audio sources and all this stuff that maybe are really hard computationally to do, and it's not going to work. So it kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense. I see it now. I'm now less sad would be the wrong word. I'm still sad, but I understand. I'm not upset anymore. I'm just disappointed.
Yes. So I know exactly what they're talking about because I write software for a living. And Steam Audio is open source. Whenever there's a bug with it, the only thing that you can really do, because you don't know the ins and outs of Steam Audio, you could make or propose changes, and they could or could not accept them. But that requires you to develop their piece of software. Whereas you can do it, but it may not be the direction that they want, so they may not accept it. So it may be wasted effort. So I can definitely see where they're coming from. I get frustrated when there's issues with the stuff that I'm using open source. I usually try to flush those things out before I choose to use those things. But I mean, if they're having those issues, like it is a big time sink in development.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things. It's like you don't necessarily always know where you're going to hit the snags before you use this stuff. Like, yeah, you try and flesh it out as best as you can, but it's hard to know until you actually do something, and then you go, oh well, I didn't realize that in particular would be a problem, or like, oh, there's this particular incompatibility that doesn't make sense, or oh, there's this specific feature of the way that we need it implemented, which means the computation time is like 5 times what we expected, and so it won't run in real time anymore. Like all of this kind of stuff, which it's hard, right? Like running stuff like this in real time is tricky. You don't get time computationally wise to do the things you want to do. You have to make shortcuts and get these things to work in a sensible way so that people can actually run them on their PCs. Like Tarkov's a bit of a beast already, right? You imagine like having all 5 Steam Audio modules on top of Lighthouse. Like, God, I was playing Lighthouse the other day. I had like 35 FPS scoped in. I was like, man, something really feels scuffed. Like it's gotten worse for me recently. I don't know why. But yeah, no, I get it. I get it. I think it's sad, but it's just the way. It's just the way. All right. What else? What next? What next? What next? What next? I'm gonna have to keep up the pace. I'm gonna have to keep up the pace. I was gonna run out of time. It talks a little bit about endurance, but it's more about just leveling of skills. I think it's that interesting. And they said about flea market reputation. Why not also level it by purchasing items? And they said flea market rep and offer limits are hard for a reason. We do not want to make them easier. Every offer the player puts up must be weighed. Well, they said weighted, but I think they mean weighed. Players should not sell screw nuts, wires, and other garbage in bulk. This is a very complex topic in terms of balance. In a way, the introduction of the flea market at the launch made the game a lot easier. We had to cut its features, introduce restrictions because it didn't work properly, and players, I think they mean didn't work properly, not in a technical sense, but in a balanced sense. The players just got everything they wanted all at once, and that's not how it should be. Auctions in this regard, by the way, would be more appropriate. We still think about the fate of the flea market. It's still an important aspect that needs to be well implemented or removed completely. First time I have ever heard them talking about removing it. Anytime I've heard a previous reference about the flea, Nikita has said, we are not removing this feature from the game. But as more stuff gets deleted from the flea, no ammo, no high tier guns, all the armor's gone. You know, now it's the, what was the last one? M1A and the SR25. They're also gone. It's coming.
Yeah, it's
But
moving
we're getting there.
to a point where it's going to be only barter items, you know? Like,
and then you've got a limit of 2. So it's a real pain. Like, a lot of people,
well,
I was talking about this with chat the other day, a lot of people don't bother going through and selling every single individual thing because it's such a waste of time.
Well, honestly, yeah. I mean, I was going to say weapon parts are the most annoying thing to sell because even though they might sell for a lot, like you can do a 300% markup than what the vendor's selling it for, they take forever to sell because it's not in high demand. Whereas like wires, that's just like constantly being circulated. There's constant demand for that. And it's so painful 2 slots to sell weapon parts. I honestly hate looting weapon parts now, like, because it's just so annoying to have to, like, what I do is in between raids, I list weapon parts because that 20-minute block of that raid or whatever will probably free up that 1 slot. And if it doesn't, then, I'm stuck at 1 out of 2 slots and I can only, it's like, I hate the limitations on that, but I kind of understand why they do it, of course. I don't know. I hope they figure out an appropriate system if it means some adjustments or if it means removing it, whatever the case may be. I'd like to see improvements for sure.
Yeah.
The biggest issue.
Sorry, go ahead.
All right. The biggest issue I've seen with it is my stash now looks crazy because you can't get the same price, or you can't buy something for the same price that you sell it for anymore. That's what I used the flea market for. It was basically a temporary stash.
Yeah.
So I feel really bad for the people who just have the base game.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have EOD, this must be incredibly painful for you.
So the very last section of it says, we still need to solve the problem with endless loot. The economy to work the way it was originally intended. In the future, we want to implement it. This is the partly thing that I was going back on around in my own head about it, because the more that time passes, so many things in the game to me only make sense with the flea gone and playing more on hardcore, and actually being excited about the items that you keep. I think again, I was talking about this, like I haven't really formalized this thought, but we've talked about this so many times. Maybe we touch on this a little bit later on, not actually, but yes, just like the trader system and the flea system together, I think just they're not really like the vision that I think Nikita's going for. But well, let's try and park that actually, because we could talk about that a little bit later. Let's finish this first, and then we can get through to the rest. So like the other interesting, like, is there anything else interesting here? So they talked a little bit about the Tarkov lighting. Let me go back to my list just to see if there's anything that was interesting. Tarkov lighting, which I don't think was that important, because they're saying like, we just want to improve lighting, we want to make it better. They said surely there was some idea of how you'd like to see the ideal progress path of a player in Tarkov. Let's say they craft bandages for themselves in the hideout, hide from enemies, and they're only plate carrier without armor plates to do the initial quest. They fear for their life and equipment. How should it look? He says, like, I like a more measured gameplay and slower leveling of character. We'll add the story quest, the actual process of escaping. I like it when a player does not play according to guides and ready-made patterns, but studies and explores the game themselves based on their own mistakes and experience. The single-player approach to the game is very cool. Explore and develop yourself. It's atmospheric, which I think is neat. I think there's a difference between, for me, there's a difference between, like, you know, guides where it's like, here's the way things work and like go and choose for yourself, versus like, this is how you do the rogues and you do this right lean peak here and then you go to this bush and then you do this peak here. You know, I think there's two differences there. I think because I was like, oh, does this, you know, is this like, is the stuff that I'm doing? It's just like, I was just thinking, like, is the stuff that I'm doing like detrimental? But I was like, actually, I think probably not, honestly, because it's more about like teaching people to make their own decisions a lot of the time. I try to teach people to fish, and I think that kind of stuff is probably all right, just from that perspective. Not that it really matters, but I just was reflecting on it. But the thing that I think is interesting about it is that, yeah, when a player does not play according to guides and ready-made patterns, I mean, that's the thing. You need to know. You need to actually know what these things are, otherwise you can't make sensible choices. But I think it's just like every time he talks about this, it's like they craft bandages for themselves, you know, all of this kind of thing. The way that nobody crafts bandages unless it's economic to do so. I keep slipping down the rabbit hole of trying to talk about the economy.
But like, I feel like there's a bit of a contradiction in what he says, and maybe this is just my interpretation of what he's saying. And granted, this is a transcription or translation, but you know, he says he wants the players to, he doesn't want them to do these guides and patterns, and you know, he wants them to explore the game for themselves. And he says the single player approach to the game is very cool. And like, when I think of single player, I think of like linear story game, you know, Half-Life 2, whatever. And it's just like, you could look up a Half-Life guide and it's going to walk you through how to do that. But if you want it to be more explorative and like discovering or whatever he's trying to say here, then like, I feel like non-linear is the way you want to go, which contradicts what potentially, I'm assuming, storyline quest is going to be. You know, it's just like, I don't really understand. I don't know. I just, that's like a big question mark for me, is like, I feel like I had, our buddy had a daily to like get the SJ6 and a couple other stems, and like he had to do like one of them he crafted, and then one, you know, a couple he went and like looted the med room on interchange. Like he had to go to different parts of the map. You know, he had like some previous knowledge. I mean, yeah, you could look up guides like where to find these stems, but you know, it's a step away from going to 203 and grabbing the folder. You know, it's like that never changes. It's always the same. That's a really easy guide to make. You know what I mean? So I just feel like if they need to like kind of get away from the pitfall of like linear progression, I guess, because otherwise I just feel like it's going to be so easy for people to make guides about it, and the game's already hard to get into, yada yada.
Yeah, definitely true. Definitely true. Dude, it's tough. All right, let's finish this quickly, and then we can move on to the next thing. Omicron secure container. It's not ready yet. This one actually next is interesting. We propose to change ad quest for leveling sniper rifles. This is a kind of an easy segue. Maybe we talk about this stuff next, actually, rather than the other way around, like we were originally going to. They actually said, I forgot about this. They said, we propose to change ad quest for leveling sniper rifles in order to exclude the leveling of sniper skills by abusing the bolt action mechanics. In general, there are some quests in the game that are very difficult to complete. For example, Grenadier, Psycho Sniper, and capturing outposts. Will their objectives be revised? Some of the quests will probably be adjusted and rebalanced, is what Nikita said. And spoiler alert, we're going to talk about this in a second. All of those quests have literally just been changed. So let's talk about that in a moment. They want to adjust steering distance on sites, trip clips for most in SKS, a bit about the gym, and then some post effects. I don't think there's really anything else that's like super interesting in there. So let's talk about these quests then, I guess.
Yeah.
Talk about these quests. So I guess let me like do a little preamble. So that question was asked. It's interesting that question was asked there in particular, And this is why I liked this podcast, honestly, because they ask the actual questions that most of the community are often thinking about, like why do these quests suck so much? Why is nobody thinking about them? Why is nothing being changed? Why is everybody complaining about these things and saying that they're awful game design? They're not fun. They're not even challenging. They're just awful. Why are they not being changed? And it's good because they've been changed. So right today we've had silent changes. So they're not actually. We were talking about this just before the podcast. They're not on Logical Solutions Tarkov changes because I think they're completely silent. They're not visible anywhere within like the public facing side of the code. Don't know where that is, but it's hidden somewhere deeper into the server infrastructure, I guess, or whatever. I don't know. It's on their side anyway. We don't have visibility of it. But what seems to have happened, or things that we've had confirmed so far, is Grenadier has been changed from 12 kills to 8. Helps a little bit. Anybody who was on 8 to 11, like Church, I guess, just quickly handed the quest. Capturing outposts has been changed from 15 kills down to 12. The quest is still awful, so I don't know how much that matters really, but it's better, I guess. Psycho Sniper seems has been changed from level 9 snipers to level 8 snipers. That's actually quite important. And then something that somebody was talking about in my Discord literally like a minute ago before we started, so I haven't been able to verify this yet, and I've only seen it there once, is that maybe the Path to the Lighthouse extract has been removed as a full-time extract from Shoreline and only sometimes activates. Don't know whether it's only if you spawn in on the east side, it's there. If you spawn in on the west side, it isn't there. I don't know yet. I'm not sure, but somebody said that they tried to use it and it wasn't there. So we'll see. But I mean, what does that mean? Like Psycho Sniper, first off, like what does that mean? Just like working the mathematics back on that. It's 8 because I guess they haven't changed the other quest yet. I wouldn't have thought so. It's 8 now. You get 3 from that mentor quest. So that means you need to get 5. You get 1 from Shooter Born in Heaven. So that's 4. And then you also get 1 from Tarkov Shooter 8 now, right? So that means you only need to get to 3 sniper on your own, I believe. And it was already better by 1 level this wipe because of Tarkov Shooter 8, giving you 1 extra skill point. And then that's kind of interesting because Tarkov, I can't remember which one it is. Is it Tarkov Shooter 4? Where you have to get to level 3 sniper?
Yeah, 1, 4, like 5, or 3.
I thought it was 3.
Is it 3? I always forget which one it is. Yeah, it's awful. But what that means is now that there's no gap basically. You can hand in once you get to 3 sniper and you do the Tarkov Shooter quest line. That means that you can then hand mentor in straight away, not having to get up another level of sniper before you do so. Now, it used to be 2. You said get to level 5 and then hand in mentor. But now you can hand in mentor like now if you want, which is kind of cool because then you can get your other one from Tarkov Shooter 8 and your final one from Shooter Born in Heaven to get you to 8 now, as opposed to 9, which is pretty neat. That sort of like smooths it out a little bit because that 3 to 4 grind, I honestly like. I could do it if I spent. I mean, how long does it take to get from 3 to 4? It probably takes, if you were just solely farming it, like a couple of hours, maybe. I don't know. Maybe a few hours. Maybe less. Maybe like 2 hours. I don't know.
I feel like on average,
less.
You think less?
Go ahead.
If you're purely going for it, I think it's less. Like if you go into factory, you stick in your spawn, nighttime factory, stick in your spawn, do it until you get to diminishing returns, grenade yourself or go to extract. As long as you have enough money, I think you could do it in do it pretty quickly because I think you can get 2.5 skill points and what the amount of time is, but it's something like a couple minutes essentially.
Yeah.
So whatever that is.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think you get down to, because I did it the other day, and I think it took me, how many was it? I think it was like 30. It was like 25 rounds or something to get down to the 60%. Then another 30, or maybe it's 30 and then 20. It was about 40 rounds, and then it gets you below like 60% diminishing returns. I think to reload all of those, it'd probably take you a couple of minutes. I mean, you still got to like load in, and then sometimes you can die on factory. You got most in, or okay. This is the thing. Like, I could just never be bothered. This is the problem. It's like I could easily do it. Like it's easy. It is actually easy. It's just time consuming, and I could never be bothered. And it's one of the reasons why I hardly ever ended up even completing mentor, because I'm like, I've got to wait until I get to the skill requirement for sniper rifles, and then I just like never used a bolty again for the whole wipe, and just never bothered. Especially given that I wasn't close to Kappa anyway. On the more recent wipes. Basically, I was joking about this the other day with chat. Basically, it's like ever since my daughter was born, like I've not been anywhere near close to Kappa ever since, which is pretty funny. But because I wasn't near there, I didn't really have the incentive to do it. It's like, why would I bother? Because then all I'm doing it for is so that I can hand in Psycho Sniper and not like waste my time if I do eventually need those extra skill levels. Because otherwise, you're just screwing yourself out. I think it's like it locks M61 or something. So if you don't hand it in, you can't buy that from Peacekeeper. It's just annoying. So you have to do the craft instead. But I mean, this helps, right? This helps. I think it's better. I think it's better. I mean, it doesn't fix the mechanics of the whole reloading the Mosin thing, but it's better. It smooths the progress out slightly.
I would prefer it if they made actually shooting people with a bolty do
Yeah.
a lot more XP. That would have made it a lot more bearable because I actually like going into raids with the
Like-
bolt action. So
I just can't help but wonder, are they aware of this? You know what I mean? Like, are they aware that this is a common thing that people do? I mean, my buddy, he's like, and this ties back into what he said earlier, where he said, you know, he wants the skills to take longer to progress. He wants it to be even longer. My buddy, he'll like, I mean, I do the same with sniper skill. You know, every start of the raid, we run SJ6, run to the loot locations, but on the way there, we're constantly loading the Mosin mags, right? And now he's doing this new thing, this swipe, where he's loading an SKS at the start of a raid because he's already got his sniper skills up to whatever he needs it to be for Kappa. But he loads his SKS because you level up your assault rifle skill, and then at the end of the raid, he'll unpack the mag, load it back up, fire his gun, maybe his primary SKS, but he's also leveling his recoil control skill. And it's like in this, he does this every raid because the system, like, otherwise you're missing out on free points. You know what I mean? And it's just like this weird, like, cheesy gamifying thing. And like to him, it's like worth it because it's like not really any skin off his back. I mean, if money's no issue, yada yada. I mean, availability, that all that plays into it, of course. But it's just like, I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, I won't go on a tangent any longer, but it frustrates me. I just wish they would don't I'm glad you're changing this part of it, but like the source is still existing. You know what I mean?
yeah, so for the Psycho Sniper one, I'm not as worried about because if you're gonna grind up to get that, it's not that bad to do. It's not that hard to do. It's just time consuming.
Mm-hmm.
The one that's time consuming that you don't know how long it's going to take you to do, and that's now required for Kappa, is the capturing outpost. And there's no reason for other players to go there. They should have cut the amount that you needed in half, in my opinion, or have quests to go there for other people.
Yeah.
Because unless you're doing that, you're not going to those locations mid-wipe.
Yeah. Have you done them?
I have never done capturing outposts. I got Kappa last wipe, so I did Psycho Sniper.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, so many people have been complaining about it. I know I've seen the few because I think that news went out slightly before everything else because Logical put up about Grenadier and capturing outposts in particular, and a couple of people were like retweeting, being like, it's well, like 15 to 12. It's better because it's closer to 0. You know, it's like that kind of mentality. You know, like it's closer to the quest not existing. I'd rather 15. It's better 15 than 18. 12 is better than 15. You know, but like, yeah, it's just like having it appear is just the worst thing. The quest just needs to be rethought completely. It's like it's not hard or challenging per se. It's just, again, it's like an actual grind, and because it's related to the actions of other players that you can't control, that's what makes it suck so much. Right? It's like you can't do anything about that, and that's not the idea of the game. Right? The idea of the game is always supposed to be like creatively working around it, and the only thing you can really do is to like put a flare up and call in an airdrop. Everybody knows what the game is with that, so there's nothing you can really do creatively with that quest, I don't think. And so that's why people hate it so much. Like the other quests, even the ones that are challenging and difficult, there's usually a few different ways of approaching it. There's potentially a solution for it, or there's ways of doing it in a more skillful way that are harder, but maybe do it faster or whatever. But this is just,
Dumb
just
luck.
sucks. Yeah, it's just dumb luck.
Yeah, I feel that way about a couple other quests. One that we just talked about, Tarkov Shooter 8, is I always try to get that done as soon into wipe as possible.
Yeah.
Because that is the most annoying one when you know where the extracts are, you know where people are going to be, but then you can't find people. And you just have to leave raid, and you have to spend 15 minutes going to leave raid because there's not enough people for you to go. That one's very, that is the most frustrating quest I've ever had, I think.
Yeah, that one's a pretty notorious one. I haven't actually finished it yet because I was quite late on. Again, I don't do that much multi stuff, so I was quite late getting to level 3 sniper or whatever. I was like, finally, I'll do it, I guess. And then actually whipped through the others relatively quickly. So now I've got that one to do. My biggest issue right now, and this is really stupid. I would actually have tried this earlier, but I hate streaming woods on stream because very long story short, I basically need fiber and it's coming soon TM. But my bitrate does not really support woods, and I hate streaming woods. Sometimes I'll do it for tasks, every now and then, but I'm not going to stream 3.5 hours of woods because everyone's going to hate it. It just looks so bad. So I'm just I kind of put off playing woods on stream. Honestly, it's I actually would almost be up for it now that you can get the poor bolty. I'm could actually be kind of fun to play Shooter 8 with that, the AXMC or whichever it's called. I think that could be entertaining at least. But
is that a bolt action?
Yeah.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah. The new 338 is, yeah. Okay. Yeah. But I still haven't killed Sturman either. So you need to kill Sturman, then you can unlock it. And then you can use the AXMC to go and do Tarkov Shooter 8, sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking about the wrong gun, sorry.
Yeah,
I did Tarkov Shooter 8. I rushed through beginning of wipe. I think I had Tarkov Shooter 8 done in 5 days, maybe, or something like that. Because I'm I hate the quest that much, and especially now with PS not one tapping a thorax.
Yeah.
It makes it extremely difficult. You're really handicapped, number one, and number two, have to have people to kill, and people don't go to woods late wipe that much.
Yeah, exactly. I think I saw Airwing did it with the new
oh yeah, MP18.
Sniper thing. You know, the MP18, the break action. He completed Tarkov Shooter 8 with that.
That's what I thought you were talking about just now. That's actually interesting.
Sorry, I see. Yeah, he did all of them with that. I think it's just as a challenge this wipe, and he actually managed to complete Shooter 8 with it, which is pretty funny. Fair play, right? Fair play. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to do that. At least you'd be really careful about your shots. At least you could be super, super careful about it. But yeah, I don't know. So then, I guess the other one. So yeah, Grenadier is just it's 8 rather than 12. It's not as hard. It's kind of the same. And then if this path to lighthouse thing is true, it depends on how they end up doing it. I think it did seem kind of asymmetric to me that people who spawn in on the west of the map, can always just extract immediately out of there. It was very useful when you have survived shoreline 15 times, and you don't want to pay attention, so you just load in. Oh, I'm on the west side. Great, I'll just lie in a bush for 7 minutes, go make a cup of tea, and then come back and just leave, and just get a free one. So I guess hopefully they've done that so that it's sort of sided now. But yeah, is what it is, I guess. I don't think it'll make that much difference. It just stops you being able to do the quick scoot out.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there was a little bit too much traffic on that side of the map, specifically that extract. Definitely got into a few firefights there. And
I think it's partly because when you're in resort, it's quicker to get to that one than it is to get to tunnel. Yeah, I think that's why all the tunnel traffic has been redirected there. And
even if you're going to customs, road to customs, it's still quicker to go to the shoreline, pat the shoreline.
Yes, true, because it's quite a long way, isn't it?
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, indeed.
As much as I liked it, I think it's probably for the best. But I did enjoy that extract.
That's where I get all 3 of my shooter kills, is people going there.
Mm-hmm.
it's a good place to get the PMC kills if you need PMC kills in Shoreline for dailies, etc. It also makes me think that the open world thing which is why I thought they had left it in initially, that's like further out.
Yeah.
So that kind of worries me a little bit.
I know what you mean, because when you're on Lighthouse, do you always have paths to Shoreline? I think you do, don't you?
I think you do.
It's no matter what spawn. Is there any spawns that don't?
I could look real quick on the wiki.
There may be one. Or that might have been last wipe. I might be thinking of.
I feel like
this wipe I've
always...
never had it, or never not had it.
Yeah, and so then for that to be symmetric between the two maps, I see where you're coming from. I agree, because it's like, oh, well, you can always go from that to this to that. And in my mind, the sort of connected maps method was going to be that. For me, that in my mind, that would be one where you go from one map to the next, but you can't go back to your hideout. Maybe you can do something else. Maybe there's a trader on the border between the two or something, but you wouldn't be going back to your hideout there, because it's just an open field, some swamp in the middle of nowhere between one place and another. So yeah, I know, I see where you're coming from. I also had the same thought, actually, because it's interesting when you see the maps connecting, and we were trying to piece in where Lighthouse actually was compared to the other maps and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Because that's funny, because if they do connect all the maps together, then I guess they'll bring that back, right? And the extracts, well, will the extracts always be open? I wonder if there would be situations where an extract that you've just come through, it's then blocked sort of artificially in some way. Say, oh, you can't go back through there now. You've just come out of there. Some enemy forces have like blocked it off, whatever. So now you're not allowed to just go back. Because otherwise, I guess you could just like infinitely just load between the two maps. I don't know why you would, but
yeah, I don't know if it would be an extract. Like, what I initially thought of when I was thinking about open world was that spot where you get the letter for Jaeger. That would be some place to like drop your goods. It's like the perfect opportunity. It's like there's a couple of structures that I think could potentially be like loot drop areas around that path to Lighthouse. So that's what my thought was initially with the open world. But taking it out as an extract makes me think that, or if they take it out completely, it makes you think they may be close to open world. They take it, if they just remove it from like everyone being able to use it, makes me think that they're further away from the open world than I thought initially. So
hard to second guess, isn't it? It's pretty tough.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out myself and see when, like, if you can still get it when you do.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Cool. So I mean, if unless you guys have anything else to add about these quests, I may pick up on what you were talking about with PS rounds, I guess. It's kind of like the pathway onto the next topic of the frag bugs. Fragmentation.
Yeah.
The ghost in the machine. Very interesting. Has everybody seen Veritas's video about fragmentation? I have been asked probably about 50 times at this point whether I've seen that video. Any video where I mention fragmentation on my entire channel is now peppered with people saying, well, clearly, as the community knows, the fragmentation only occurs on the legs and the arms. Everyone's suddenly become a local authority on fragmentation. Within an instant, I had comments within like half an hour on the videos I posted like 3 weeks ago about, oh god, honestly, it's quite funny. I don't really mind. I get it.
Was it the same day that you posted the 5.56, suggestions, I guess, like which guns to use? Yeah. I was like, I watched it and I noticed that you did not include any,
Correct.
And I was like, oh man, he's gonna get roasted in the comments. They're gonna burn it.
I was just like, another video has come out within 3 hours previously to this thing being posted, and you haven't addressed. I was just like, there was absolutely no way that I'm re-uploading this thing. All right, it's fine. It's fine. We'll address it another time. I was like, it's at the end of the video too. So anybody who comments, they've watched all the way through. So that's fine. They get to make their comment about it. Anyway, interesting one. It's an interesting one. I quite like the way that this came about.
Mhm.
And it was funny actually that it came this way through Desmond to Veritas, basically saying, I've never been one shot in the thorax with M61 or BP or any of these other bullets where, I've played thousands of hours and thousands of raids and I should have died at some point to a one-shot thorax, and this just never happened. Do you want to have a look at this? And it's an interesting one because I wonder whether I should have noticed, because we didn't get any fragments when I was testing the Tasmanian Tiger SK rig the other day to the thorax, and I did think about it, and we tested for it, and we were like, oh, we didn't get any fragments, but I didn't think about it at the time.
Mhm.
Like, we only did like 5 shots and stuff, but like the likelihood of not getting a fragment at some point with like 55A1 is actually really quite low. But we never really connected the dots. We're like, oh, no fragments, great. It means the test is like nice and clear. Because we were thinking about something completely different.
Right.
So we almost could have uncovered that ourselves, actually, when we were doing it, but just like didn't really think about it, which is kind of interesting. So, okay, so we'll cover the super broad basics, right? This is going to turn into a very quick lesson. The fragmentation stat is on every round. When something fragments, the long and the short of it is it does 1.5 times damage. So you get a 50% damage boost. It's like a crit. Rounds under 20 penetration don't fragment. They've never fragmented. It's been a long-standing bug in the game. My personal opinion that it's actually a feature, because the ammo stats are basically balanced around that. Like, if it suddenly worked one day, rip rounds would do nearly 400 damage in one shot to the leg because they've got a 100% frag chance, which would be absolutely bonkers insane.
Mhm.
So there's lots of places in the ballistics chart which look like they know, and it's balanced around that fact already. But anyway, so nothing under 20 pen fragments. The bug that's been uncovered is kind of what we just mentioned, what Desmond's observation was to Veritas, which is that if you get shot in the thorax or the stomach as a PMC, it appears that bullets cannot fragment at all, no matter what they are, no matter what the pen is, no matter what the bullet is. They tested a load of high-end rounds. I was looking for the list, but I can't remember what the list of bullets that Veritas did, but it was at least like M61 and like a couple of other like high-tier ones. So I wondered whether maybe there was a bug the other way around. I'm actually putting a video out, so I finished it. It's uploaded. So this is some of that information, I guess. I thought maybe there'd be some bug where it's like the other way around. So over a certain pen, maybe it doesn't fragment anymore.
Oh,
You can almost
okay.
imagine that.
Yeah.
So the rounds that I was testing were the ones that are more in the middle, and the ones where I
Mhm.
think it makes more difference, actually. So T46M, because I've talked about this in the past, 556, 55A1, and 56A1, because those two are used a lot and they have a really high frag chance. It makes it easy to test because you're supposed to get fragment 1 in every 3. If you shoot 10 times, you don't get one. It's like, it is pretty much a dead cert. So I went into offline with somebody. We tested it there. We agreed with Veritas's test. I was talking to Tower as well, and he was apparently talking to Veritas afterwards. And the one kind of like, I guess, bug in their methodology or whatever is that they only used co-op offline, and they didn't test it in the live raid. So just to square that circle, we went
Yeah.
and did that. So we went and tested the 2 5.56 rounds in the live raid. They also don't fragment on the thorax, which is pretty interesting. And the only other thing I think, in terms of sort of like background information of like what could be wrong, was there was a Twitter post that somebody posted on Twitter on my retweeted post from Veritas's video, basically saying, I could have sworn that I had one-shot scavs in my T46M video for the SVD. And I was like, yeah, I did. It did, and it does happen. And I went into Offline Factory, and you can, 1 every 5 shots, one-shot as AI scav with T46M, right? Which is fascinating, because it happened to me in live raids, and it still happens in offline, like solo. Now, maybe offline solo is different to the other two. I think that's highly unlikely. Veritas himself actually replied to me and was like, there's only one other thing that could potentially be it. It seems really unlikely, but it could be that there's something to do with the fact that PMCs tagged together as a squad don't fragment. So maybe it is working out in live if you're not part of a squad, but if you are part of a squad, it isn't working. He was like, he said something to the effect of, I can feel myself like face palming even just mentioning that suggestion. So, if the spaghetti code goes that far, then
Yeah.
God
So,
help us all.
but wait, I'm sorry. I want to be clear on this. You did get a fragmentation against a scav
Correct.
on T45M.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could have tested it with 556, but I thought it was easier to test with. Actually, that may be a good idea to go and test that with 556 because I could run in, but then armor kind of makes it more complicated. No, I probably shouldn't actually. If I use like 55A1, it'll auto pen, so I could just go through and do one shot, and I can go and run out and do it like 5 times or something, and eventually I'll have one shot that's 50% more damage. But with T46 it's easy, right? Because you aim at the scav and you go click and they die, right? And then you run out of the raid and it says thorax. So that was the way I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure that it's working against scavs. And I did it a couple of times. I'm like, it's not like through the arm and then hitting the head with a fragment piece or whatever. Like, I shot them in the chest. It said thorax at the end. It only took one shot, you know. And I've done it in live raids when I was using T46. I'd like have a clip in the video of me one-shotting a scav on customs with T46. So like, I'm pretty certain that it's working for scavs, not working for PMCs.
But scavs with armor or without armor?
I don't think it matters.
Okay, because I forget.
I don't know if it matters.
Was the Veritas video, was it with armor or with it? It's just chest or thorax, doesn't matter.
Both. They tried
Okay.
both. They tried without. They tried it with. The armor doesn't
Gotcha.
make any difference at all.
Gotcha.
So that's the short take. I mean, what this means, it's up to your own interpretation, right? As to like what you use and whether it's important or not. Like it makes 556 a bit less good, and other rounds like that. There's like a whole set of rounds that have got about 30 pen. Oh, sorry, 30 fragmentation chance, 30%, which is like 556 A1. Oh, sorry, 56 A1, 55 A1, M9 M5 as well, which because of the lower damage, it actually suffers a bit because you should be able to 2-tap a lot of the time if it fragments because it's actually got quite a high frag chance. But now it's like basically all these rounds are like 3-shot rounds always.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like a handful of other stuff. The T46 is the LPSs, the M80s, which are all kind of 17% chance or something. So 1 in 5 times if you get a pen through class 4 or whatever, you should just insta kill somebody. But that will never do that with those rounds. So it's interesting. Who knows how long this has been the game for? Because if this is like a long-term observation of Desmond, for example,
yeah,
this could have been here for
I think
forever.
it has been. Like,
yeah,
well,
like,
maybe not forever.
Yeah, because like who tested this? Like no fam, like 5 years ago or
Yeah,
something.
right.
Like, has anybody ever tested this stuff ever since? You know what I mean? And like, it just makes me wonder. Something else I wrote on Twitter makes me wonder, like, what other untested assumptions do we make, just generally speaking? You know, like how often do you have to test this stuff? Do you have to like test it every month? Do you, like test all the mechanics every month? Do we have to test the pen chance percentages every month? Go and do like a heuristics thing in raid? Like, oh, we did it this many times and it looks to be about right, so I guess it's still okay. Like, yeah, it's like it's so hard to do it, right? So hard. Yeah, I don't know.
I actually uncovered this prior
Really?
to the video. Yeah, I gathered about 368, approximately 330. I was trying to calculate armor damage, get that equation, which is I don't think it's possible based off of the data I got, but I didn't get a single. Well, I thought I got a frag chance on the thorax, one single frag chance using BS ammo. Turns out that was a bug. Thought I got one using US ammo, Haka. That I know was a bug. But with the fragmentation chance of 10%, I tested BS. I want to say probably 100 shots. The first shot that I did into an arm, 60 HP right off. So I had a feeling that fragmentation chance was no longer being like applied to thorax or at least the armor zones, which is thorax that I was testing.
Yeah. And when was this that you found this out?
I want to say 2-ish weeks ago. Yeah, I have a whole set of data. There may be 1 or 2 pieces of information that's corrupted in it. Because I was gathering it kind of live time when I was doing it, but like I did notice that nothing fragmented ever, except for BS, which did not happen. Actually, it must have been a bug, because it should have fragmented a lot more. But I noticed that there was a discrepancy in fragmentation chance when you shot limbs versus not at that point. Didn't put on my video though.
But
Fair enough.
When Desmond, like the video opens up and Desmond says, or Veritas quotes Desmond, like, I've never died to M61 by a fragment chance, like a one shot. And like, I thought about that too, and I was like, oh yeah, I don't think I've ever, like, I only think of one instance on the death screen where like, and I'm sorry, but the death screen like stat sheet of where you took damage is confusing as heck for me, dude. I can't make heads or tails of it sometimes. But I do like have one vivid memory of like having a fragmentation. I don't think it was the chest, but I took like a lot of damage, and I want to say there's a icon specifically for fragmentation. I now want to test this. Or maybe it's not an icon, but maybe it says fragmentation. But I want to test it now to shoot someone in the arm and see if you can, after enough shots, you should proc a fragmentation, and then they'll die, and then they could check their death screen.
Does it say 2?
Dude, I'm like, when I say the death screen's hard for me to understand, I'm being like dead ass. Like I think it's a really bad. We
could test that really easily. I think it might say 2 or something, because it's almost like the way that, on your own screen, if you go to fragment, it says rounds fired 1, hit count 2.
Yeah.
Or it's that weird thing of, in that case, it probably doesn't work. I'm not sure if it bugs out, but it says like rounds fired 10, hit count 5, accuracy 30%. And people go, what's happened here? But it's like 2 of the round, you only hit them 3 times. So the hit count is correct, but that implies 3 hits. But 5 hits in the stat screen means that 2 of the rounds fragmented. You know what I mean? Like, so when it's on your side, it counts as a hit for the stats, even though you actually only connected 3 rounds out of your gun with their player model. You know what I mean? You got 5 hits because 2 fragments happened, and so those bullets counted twice. Oh yeah, someone's written in chat. There's one that says like collateral from L arm, I think is one of the things that it says. But that's when isn't that when it's blacked? Isn't that the black splash over?
That's overflow damage.
Yeah, I think that's the overflow. That's actually an interesting one. Like, how does it show up? How does it even show up? Because if it shows just like 2, then you wouldn't know necessarily. If it was like M61 and it fragmented, and it says just like M61 2 because it had a fragment and both counted, you wouldn't necessarily know. You just like get somebody to shoot you in the arm with like any of the 5.56 weapons until you get a fragment, and then just leave the raid and just see what the post raid screen says.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Because I want to say my memories come back to me. We were trying to figure out how I died or how he died, one or the other, and we were like trying to decipher the cryptic post-raid death screen, and the conclusion we probably came to is like fragmentation must have occurred because there was some weird, inconsistency with the data that was being presented. Yeah, now I want to test that. It's interesting.
This could be intentional to up the time to kill.
It could be
potentially. And I really wonder, because you mentioned the scav thing, I wonder if when scav shoot you, there is also an ability to fragment. Because I swear there have been times where I died Sturman like one shot, I think, using PS or SMB, and definitely other bosses as well in the darks.
That's a very, very good point. I have a clip somewhere of me getting M61 one-tapped by a scav in the chest. Somewhere. Let me see if I can find it while we're talking.
Yeah, this
you've got me thinking now. That's a whole kind of worms, isn't it?
So many more questions with this. Because if it's like, for whatever reason, let's say it's bugged for players versus players, it could answer a lot of questions about scavs doing like insane damage. Like, dude, just the other day I was doing reserve drop down into the little drop down room, and as I was dropping down, there was a scav like right outside underneath that was just dead silent, and he's Wanatsuka, and of course he has PS rounds in his AK, and he just starts ripping me up, dude. And I got class 5 armor, but I am like at 100 HP, broken leg, trying to just like get into the window, like, no, don't kill me, AI scav, please. But yeah, he did like giga damage to me.
Yeah, I had a horrible experience on reserve. Actually, like it was either yesterday or the day before. I think it was 2 days ago, and I had like a Gen 4. You know the middle one, like it's not the biggest one. What's it called? It's Assault, I think. Gen 4 Assault.
Okay, yeah.
I think I got it from a quest. I was just like, we'll just use it. We're just like chatting around on reserve, and I started taking like mega damage, like omega damage from this scav at like long range. I was like, what the hell? And then we ended up killing the guy. We had to like go and loot him out in the open because the whole of chat and me were just like, what does he have, man? What does he have?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's got like M855A1. I got absolutely grilled by this scav I was at train station, outside of as you're coming through the doors towards the K buildings.
Mm-hmm.
I was like at those doors basically, and he was just in front of the bunkers, like where you go to extract.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, there's a scav, it's fine. I was like, I can take a few hits. I had like a face shield on and like the class 5 armor, and it was just like my health bar was just like, up in the corner, it's just like red. My arm was like half HP. I was like, what the frick does he have? This is insane, man. So then ran around the whole back of train station and killed him from above. And then he's just like packing 4 mags of 55A1 in an ADAR. I was like, my God, it's insane. I did actually I've actually found it, by the way. I've actually found it just quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what I had. So I got shot once, and it says, interestingly, it says collateral from left arm. So I think my arm got shot first and blacked, and then it says M61 brackets 2 on my thorax. Make of that what you will.
But you think it's okay? Yeah, we gotta do some testing then.
I died instantaneously. Right, so I was fighting this scav. Mm-hmm. I died instantly, and the post raid screen has got equal, but you're dead and need to heal up from half health limbs, except for the left arm, which is at 6 out of 60, like much lower than the other limbs. And it just says on the thorax, which is where the death icon is. The death icon's on the thorax. And it says 762 by 51 M61, collateral from left arm, 762 by 51 M61 brackets 2. Which is fascinating. So, I don't know. Whether it penned the left arm, went through.
Yeah.
Fragmented, I don't know.
I don't
know. Sorry, what were you going to say, Caesar?
I'm sending you something right now.
Okay.
You're going to find it very interesting. It's a screenshot. It's taking a long time to upload. Try it again. I was actually talking with another content creator who has very few views, or at least just getting started, helping him out. And I reviewed one of his clips, and he died to his scav with M61. And there is one shot that he died to.
Interesting.
On the post raid screen. One single shot. And I want to prove it by sending you a screenshot, but in processing apparently.
Let's take a screenshot. Okay, well I believe you, but I'm looking at my clip now because I like.
Here, I'll send you the video link.
Whereabouts is it in the vid?
It's second 26.
26. Oh, here it is. There we go. It says what does that say? Previous damage. I wonder when this was. I don't think I've ever seen my UI say previous damage before. On his video. That's really weird, no? Does it normally say previous damage to you?
I have not seen that before.
I don't know what that means.
But
previous damage is when you go into raid and not full health. Someone's saying in chat. Maybe he didn't have his thorax fully healed.
Maybe.
That could be it.
Carryover damage. Dude, this is so infuriating to test anything in this game. Oh my god.
And this is going to be so hard to test to actually figure out what the answer is. Because how often do you run into M61 scavs and then die to them?
I know.
I mean, the only other thing, this would be some major spaghetti code, but what if you could like player scav into a live raid? Is it like flagged for scavs? Like PMCs can't fragment in these areas, but scavs can for whatever God knows reason. You know, could you actually do it? Is it not a player-to-player interaction possibility? Is it only like AI to player? Is this even a thing at all? There's a lot of testing, a lot of man hours that needs to be just grinded down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they really are. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I guess like the other way, like it's one of the issues I had is like, how do you even get scavs into the same raids as PMCs? Like you can't really snipe it because they go in at a different
really
time.
hard, yeah.
You know, because that's what you want. You sort of want. I mean, I know with AI scavs, it's impossible to know. But even with a player scav, if they had M61, it's like, how do you give the PMC gear to the scav to then them shoot you and test it? You know what I mean?
And would that
It's
be
like,
the same thing as an AI scav?
exactly? Do we know? You know,
Yeah.
maybe player scavs can't fragment on PMCs as well. Maybe only AI scavs can. Maybe you can't kill a scav who's controlled by a player with a fragment. Maybe you can only kill AI scavs with a fragment. It's like it's hard and very hard to test.
I guess
It's very hard to test.
I guess one way of doing it would be finding a scav of like a hunter, because they probably have what BPZ or what is that one
most
round?
of the time, yeah.
And is
Or like TCW?
yeah, doesn't one of those have
All
a
the
high?
ones that are not M80, you know.
I know one of
The
those
ones that
has
will-
a high. Go ahead.
The ones that do a lot of damage. So when you're definitely going to have your stomach blacked out no matter what. It's just how much damage the rest of your limbs take.
Ultra Noiser, that's the one. That one has a 70. Oh wait, that has pin. No, it's not the one I'm thinking of. Anyways, they have like 20 pin. The TCW, the BCP has like 25 fragmentation. I don't know. That'd be like the only thing I could think. It's like you find that scav, that hunter scav, and then you just like, I don't know what kind of armor you would want to wear. It just sounds like a nightmare to test, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe factory on horde mode would be a decent, roll of the dice. You could find a scav with a decent, any ADAR scav probably would do, because most of those round has like a decent fragmentation test.
I think okay, so I've been like flipping around in my clip a little bit more, just
Mhm.
reminding myself of exactly what happened. I think it's like even more complicated than that.
Oh no.
So I think my arm got blacked previously by M80 in the raid, but I healed it. That's why it was started lower. The arm itself that got shot has got one set of damage from M80, which I think was before that. That's the first line. Then the second line is one single shot of M61. And then the thorax has the two M61 shots on it. So it's got like, so basically it's like the arm took one M80 previously, and then one M61. And then my thorax itself has then got the two M61 shots on it. So something weird happened, and it like went through the arm, and then like fragmented into pieces, as well as the original round coming through and like killing me or something. I don't know. It's very weird. But it was only one shot, because the arm only took one shot. Very odd. Very odd. These scav bugs are impossible because like we can't control the AI, and we can't see what it's like from their perspective. So that's the issue. And it's the same as people are talking in chat about, like, the multiple damage bug from raiders and guards and that kind of thing, where you only hear one shot and then you have like 3 BP on your chest and you're dead. That kind of stuff, which is
Could be fragments.
Could be,
Maybe.
right? It's possible. I
But
kind
it
of want
seems
to
unlikely, I think. I don't know.
like, what does this mean though? Like, because I was like now thinking about it, I was like, man, M61 should be kind of more, or even M80. You I feel like you should get those one taps, and I guess in your mind you think 17%. Oh, that's such a low percent chance, because there is times where you just like one tap someone, and you're like, oh, he just died. I guess I got a fragment, but maybe he wasn't full HP. Maybe he got shot at previously. Like it's just like no way of knowing. Maybe you shot him in the arm, or someone shot him in the arm, and it blacked his arm, and he took some thorax damage. It's hard to say, but like if they were to fix this, I would like to see. I would like to see the system, because right now it seems like we're playing on a incomplete system where fragments don't work. Yeah, on the chest and stomach. Chest arguably the most important one, because you could one tap people with M61 17% of the time. Just kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, exactly. I'm intrigued now as to whether I actually died because the round fragmented and penetrated because of M61's high penetration straight through the left arm, fragmented into 2 pieces, and then because it hit my thorax with both pieces, then I died. So it was a fragment, but it was a fragment like from the arm itself. Or I guess it could have been a fragment on the chest specifically after the arm. There are some funky mechanics which I don't think anybody really understands, which is like what happens when a round goes through somebody completely.
Yeah.
Like there's some stuff where like any time that I've asked anybody who actually really knows about this kind of stuff, the 2 things that people start to get a little bit like, whoa, you're entering into Tarkov voodoo land here. Like whenever I've asked anything about ricochet chance is the first one, and the second one is about penetrating and rounds hitting multiple body parts. Like people just start getting like, whoa, we're into weird Tarkov voodoo space. Like nobody really knows how this stuff works. It's because it's too difficult to test properly. There's not enough controls to put in place, and the outcomes are too random. Yeah,
I'll
man.
tell you one thing though. It does not do double armor damage if it goes through you, which you'd think it would.
That's good to know, actually. That's good to know, because I was asked that question and I didn't know the answer because I haven't looked into it specifically yet. I guess like the round hits, armor check happens, and then once it actually goes through and is into the flesh bit of the calculation, then it decides whether it fragments or not, I suppose. That's good to know, though, that it doesn't do extra damage when it fragments. I suppose it makes sense, too, I suppose.
No, it doesn't do double armor damage, so it doesn't hit your armor on the way out and do damage there.
Like if you pin through your armor.
I see. If it goes through and comes out the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I did all of my testing in a Connex box on customs. And you could hear the rounds ping off at the end.
Oh, I see what you mean.
I didn't get any weird numbers.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Fine, makes sense. I think there was like the weirdest one I had. I think I headshot a scav. He was on top of power station on shoreline with some tracer. I can't remember what it was. Hit him in the head, and it was just like seeing the tracer go just off into the distance, like headshot the scav, but then the tracer's just like, because it was sort of at dusk or something, so you could see it really easily, and it was like just reflected outside of this dude's skull, out of this scav's skull. I was like, man, that's pretty nuts. Like one shot him, but then the round just carried on off into the distance somewhere. Kind of crazy. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, I mean, all of our understanding about like what feels good and what doesn't feel good. I mean, there's a lot of value to that, right? Because like our feeling of what is good and what isn't good, what gets you killed, what doesn't get you killed, takes into account all of what's actually in the game, even though we're not calculating it, right? Do you know what I mean? Like that feel, people feel when something's good or bad or something's off or not based on how things are. And I still think like 5.56 is still all right. Like it's not like 7.62 BP or the M80 and above, but it's still decent. It's still better than 5.45 in my opinion. It still feels okay. You still get fragments on limbs if you're just like spraying like crazy at somebody. It's not the end of the world. Like it changes the. Sometimes you won't like before you might have got a 2-tap on their thorax, but now it's always 3. But it was only ever a chance, and with the range mechanics, it kind of diminished that anyway. So I still think it's probably all right. It's just there's like certain circumstances now where you don't 2-tap them, but given it's a very much like more of a spraying round than a sniping round, especially now the way people use it with the ranged drop off, I still think it's all right, and it still feels all right. It's felt okay to me, this wipe. Like it's felt quite strong. I think just like the base damage buffs have had quite a lot to do with that for me anyway. I don't think 5.56 is in the bin, at least not as far as I'm concerned.
No.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the
I
big
think
thing with 5.56 is its price, like especially once you get it from Skier, you get 90 per reset for like 500 some rubles. Like that's like over half the cost of BP. And it's like like it's a really good budget round that's like capable at going toe to toe late wipe with some geared players. So it's okay.
Yeah, like if you don't mod your 7.62 BP taker weapons,
Mm-hmm.
they suck, right? And whereas like a 5.501, you can just stick it in an MDR. Like that's a huge benefit,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
like it's good for that kind of like late game budget. Like, yeah, you need the levels, but you can just like run and gun with some cheap weapons and just like not worry about it too much. But yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, dude, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know whether this is going to get fixed, whether it's going to get changed, whether this is intentional. Kind of remains to be seen. Maybe. I mean, I don't think it's out of the question that we'll see a change. I don't think they'll say anything, but I think we might see a change or something happen, or maybe it'll get referenced in the next big patch. Fixes for da 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 da. In the notes when they have in the bug fixes, made changes to player fragmentation and da da da, something like that. I don't think that. I think it's probably 50-50 that we get something along those lines. Whether it's a good thing or not, I'm not actually sure. Because, like, as I was saying, it feels kind of fine. And not getting one taps randomly by M80 is probably okay.
yeah.
All things considered, like more RNG is not necessarily better, even though it's realistic. I'm just talking like with the gamer hat on, obviously. Yeah, dude. I don't know. I don't know. Weird one though. It's amazing it's taken so long to
Yeah.
like raise its head into the public domain.
Mm-hmm.
I think, but kind of makes sense because of co-op offline and people being able to test this stuff more easily. This is one of the anticipated things that we thought was going to allow a lot more easy testing, and it definitely does. So
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Well, I think we've reached pretty much the end of our time. I know we wanted to talk some
I
economy
know
stuff, but
it's economy stuff. We ended like always the way. There's so much stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
but yeah, dude, thanks for coming on. I know you messaged me, and this is like been maybe the second or third time that someone has messaged and be like, yeah, dude, sure, why not come on the show? Let's talk, dude. And like Giga said earlier, it's always good to get outside perspectives and then unique perspectives from people. And so yeah, appreciate you taking the time out, come on the show and talk Tarkov with us.
Appreciate you having me. It's been definitely really interesting and a lot of takeaways actually.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's been good, dude. Thanks for coming on.
Where can people find you at? What's the easiest way to get in touch with your content?
That's actually not that easy. If you search CZTL on YouTube, you'll find me. That's not the actual name of my channel though. It's something I had to make it something weird. But I think CZTL0 on Twitter if I remember correctly. I'm also CZTL on Twitter, but that's my like personal account.
Mm-hmm.
So any of that, but it's CRSTALLI on YouTube. That's the actual name of my channel.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I think that brings us to the close here, guys. Thanks everyone for tuning in. And with that, catch you all next week.